contains a private drive known as Kimball Street to be combined with the residential property at 9 Kimball. The abutter would pay for the deed and survey, so there wouldn't be any cost to the city, and it would make the lot more conforming and would not have a noticeable effect on the remaining of the 2 parcels. On the remaining of the 2 parcels, the tax acquired committee thinks that there are 2 viable options. One would be to market the remaining land as 2 house lots as part of a sealed bid process, or you could consider up to 10 condominium units and market it for a little while and see if there are any interested developers. The other properties we are looking at and would recommend sealed bid would be Garfield Road, which is no number, so it's listed as parcel ID, Hackett Road, 120 Cook, and 77 Gill. The total of the 6 properties that would be collected in taxes, back taxes, would be $37,901.05. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for, and we'll definitely come back with some questions specific to the Court Beckett Kimball parcel that you mentioned. There's a decision point that the council needs to make, at least there's some guidance. Council, do you have any questions to Mrs. Driscoll on? Councilor Fournier.
They're not questions, but I truly appreciate your briefing that you put together and explaining all of this in like 39 pages of documents. I reviewed them this afternoon, or this morning rather, and it was extremely helpful. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we have to come back, and you're looking for a little bit of guidance, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but on the Kimball Beck Court property, if you would, potential lies for 2 house lots after the abutting situation is dealt with, or potentially 10 condos. Now I'm going to ask, obviously, the question, is it zoned correctly for multifamily?
Yes.
Okay.
There are some flood zone issues that we would have to work around, and Eric Cousins drew up just a preliminary sketch here. Let's see if I can get the whole thing to show up. So the curvy line here is the flood zone.
Flood.
You can see the squares are where the proposed condo units could go. And this is the proposed section of land that would be conveyed to the abutter to correct the private drive or access to the property at 9 Kimball.
So in theory, both, if it was in 2 house lots, both houses would be in the 100-year floodplain?
Unless they're located in the same areas where he has the condos shown here.
Got it.
I think how he has them shown here are outside.
Condos. Council, any comment? I mean, obviously both are doable. This is a non-binding. We're not voting at this point, but there's some guidance. How long, you did mention about timing. I mean, we could put this up to sealed bid for both lots in how long? In a month or 2 months?
Yes.
Versus how long for
Usually
potential proposal?
For a sealed bid notice, we prepare it, we put it out, we leave it out there for a month so people have time to do their research on the properties before submitting a bid to the city. And if we were to try to market it for development, I would anticipate that that would be given more time than a sealed bid process. And it would be up to council how long you wanted to give that a try, potentially before you revisit it and decide to go a different route.
Any thoughts, comments on this from the council? I mean, just knowing intimately well the 100-year floodplain and flood insurance on a private dwelling, it's problematic. I mean, it's a significantly added cost to the individual homeowner. I mean, the condo aspect, multi-units, pushing it back out of floodplain is definitely desirable. Yeah. From a taxation standpoint, valuation's obviously key. Most, value for density, that's always a positive. Thoughts?
I would just like to give it some time. You know, if we're going the route of the 10 condominium units, I'd like to, you know, discuss that further in terms of what we're looking for in that area.
Any other thoughts, comments? Or really at this point, it's, you know, do we want to wait 6 months versus, and try to market it more? I'm just throwing out an arbitrary number. It could be longer. Give it a deadline on our end before we pull it back for 2 individual lots to be sold.
I don't want to make a quick decision on what happens with that particular piece of property.
Councilor Hayes?
I think I'd support, you know, apartments or condos as opposed to 2 building lots. I think it's, you know, it's on a corridor. It's, you know, closer to our downtown. I think there'd be, again, more return than we would see with two house lots on that particular property.
So you're saying we'd have more tax return if we had something other than 2 house lots?
Yeah, I guess as we left meeting last week, you know, I asked about homestead exemption. I guess when we're talking about apartment buildings, there's no homestead exemption. So it actually becomes a commercial property. Condominiums, there is a homestead exemption because it is essentially private property.
But either way, you do get more density, more value per acre, if you would, through a multi-unit division versus 2 single homes. Why don't, if we could, Mr. Manager, could you look and talk with economic development, probably get us a time frame on marketing this for multi-use split, come back on the council meeting on the 25th with an actual resolution and recommendation. That way it'll give us some time to think about it. Council, sound good?
Yeah, the only thing, Mr. Mayor, the only thing I wanted to bring up is I want to be cautious of, we're selling surplus property. And I think that we have to be cautious whenever we put any kind of amendments or any kind of restrictions on a property that we want to put for sale, we usually don't sell it. So,
make sure we have a sunset period where it's out there
well,
for 6 to 9 months and then we pull it back.
We want to put it up for a bid. What person will, the contractor or whoever buys it are going to want to do what they think is going to make sense regardless. And we shouldn't, if we put restrictions on it, we're just going to delay anybody wanting to.
I don't feel comfortable making a non-binding decision in a workshop, so if we
well,
can
we're
get
not
at least,
doing it, but I'm just saying that
let's
I like to see us just kind of put the stuff out there, and if we want to hold it, then we hold it for a reason. If we're not going to hold it, then we sell it at the highest bidder, and they do it at what they can within legal and, you know, ordinance and stuff.
Yeah, let's bring this in a resolution on the 25th. That way we can have a proper debate and a decision. A vote, please. Okay. Correct. Any other questions regarding the other properties? No? This is great. I mean, I didn't catch, I'm not sure if you even mentioned it, but in the last several years, I don't think we've put, the past council hasn't put more than a couple, or if any, tax-acquired properties out there. So this is a huge, huge move in the right direction. Thank you very much for your hard work on this. And obviously the committee that you work with, too.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, I guess one other thought. I know that there was some interest on that side of Court Street to reconsider some rezoning. So I guess, you know, there is another possible use, and that would be commercial. Because on the opposite side, it is commercial. We have a corner lot that is sort of semi-commercial residential. And there was talk that there might be a higher use on that corner as well.
I think at this point, it's really the conversation of, you know, do we go through that? I'm not pro or con any of that, by the way, but do we bring this in front of planning board for any consideration there prior to coming back to council?
I think that it needs to be the person who's going to develop it. If they think it's going to be a commercial use, then they'll have to, you know, go through the process. But if we zone it commercial, then it may not be suitable as a residential for whatever reason. I don't know.
Councilor?
I agree with Councilor Titus that we wait to see what the proposal is and then can move forward from there instead of us trying to anticipate.
Okay. So let's bring this to resolution on the 25th. We'll have a proper debate and we'll give direction to staff on what to do with the dispossession of that property. Thank you very much, Mrs. Driscoll. Appreciate it. Oh, wait.
Oh,
You're on deck and you're up. Sealer of weights and measures. Jody, Mr. Driscoll, you're up.
The sealer of weights and measures. The city received a request in August of 2018 by a gentleman who was recently certified to perform the sealer of weights and measures, who basically checks gas pumps and small scales in towns or cities across the state. Thomas Verrill was appointed in October 92 as Auburn's local sealer weights and measures and served until he retired in 2014. At that time, the city clerk contacted the state because there was not another individual interested in being appointed, and at that time, the state sealer's office basically covers the territory. In the meantime, they had realized that there was a change in the statute and that actually took away the cities and towns' ability to appoint their own sealer weights and measures. Until that time, the state has had, I think, 3 state sealers that have been covering the entire state, which has caused a problem at that level. They're basically only able to respond to complaints across the state at this time. So there are not routine inspections happening at the pumps and small scales. The other change to the legislature was there was not formally any requirements for any training or education, and there is now a national certification program, so I would consider that an improvement to the statute, that the individual has to be certified in pumps and small weights and scales. If the council decides to move forward with an appointment, I would recommend an annual appointment, which would give council the opportunity to communicate with the individual about the business they've conducted in the town, as well as revisit getting a current insurance certificate, and also making sure that the certifications are current. They expire every 5 years, but just as a practice is probably better to do it annually versus every 5 years.
Very good. Mr. Manager, I'm going to turn it over to you before we have some questions from Mrs. Driscoll. From a policy standpoint, this would obviously, potentially, if we're kind of in agreement, come up February 25th or in March. What are we looking at?
Well, I think in terms of this particular situation, I appreciate the Executive Assistant Jody Dorisco presenting this. This individual has approached both the City of Lewiston and the City of Auburn about this issue of a sealer of weights and measures. And as Jody's indicated, we're looking at this as an appointment like a constable, for example. There is no cost to the city to do this. We feel a certain obligation that there is someone who is doing this in the community.
Very good. Questions from the council? Councilor Lasagna.
It seems from Mr. Verrill's letter that there might not be interest from individuals in the community to fulfill this role. Does that sound correct?
He is the only one at this point that the state is aware of that has the certifications required outside of their own employees.
And the certification doesn't cost any money to the city?
No, there's no cost to the city for any of it. In fact, the fees that the sealer weights and measures would collect are fees that are paid to the state when they are doing their licensing process. And for a small scale, that would be a direct bill situation where if he went to a supermarket per se, he would invoice them directly and be paid directly back from them. Usually it's around $5 per scale.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Titus?
so I would assume this guy will work as an independent contractor, but would he work under the purview of the city? That is, would he have the authority of the city without being a city employee?
Technically, he would be an independent contractor of the state because they would be issuing payment to him and will be responsible for giving him a 1099.
So it wouldn't be the city. So the person wouldn't say, I'm here from the city of Auburn doing the check on the scales?
Yep.
He would say that?
Yep. It's basically you're giving him permission to operate within the city boundaries just like you do a civil constable.
I'd like to know more about, why we are, the certain situation, if there's an issue. I just don't know if I want to have an independent contractor that's using the city's name to enforce or somehow, my little concern about that, it's.
The problem is, though, the state is having a hard time keeping up with this because a lot of municipalities.
Right, if he says I'm with the state of Maine and I'm a contractor with
Right.
the state of Maine, I got no problem with it. But if he's going to say I'm an independent contractor with the city of Auburn coming in to check your scales and weights and measures, I don't know if I feel comfortable.
My understanding is he's under the purview of the state of Maine.
I think he will present himself as
Working
a
on behalf of-
contractor, period. Like, he is his own employer. I don't think he's going to represent himself as an employee of the city or an employee of the state.
Yeah, I have no problem if it's going to be to help alleviate the backlog for state work. But if it's a city of Auburn that's taking a step forward and deciding, I would not be comfortable with that.
I think the one year, you have up to 1 through 5 years or so. I agree with Jody that the 1 year time span would be enough to, let us see how things are going. And I think 1 year gives us an opportunity to check on the individual to see what kind of work he's doing.
Yeah, just an additional comment, I would view this as a service, that we're providing to the community, to these particular businesses, and I think it's a good thing that we're doing it. I don't see any particular liability that we would have regarding this situation. So.
And it's also, from a residential standpoint, viewpoint, I mean, these are the folks that make sure a gallon of gas is a gallon of gas. A pound of fill is a pound of fill.
Or going into the bars and checking the measure of the pints.
I hopefully they don't do that. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
A pint is a pint.
A
Right?
pint is a pint is a pint.
That's what I'm saying is I don't know that I want the city of Auburn in the middle of that. If it's a state thing, that's fine, I understand it, but I don't know that I want.
Historically, we have been. But we have some information, and, I think, again, thank you for the information on this. We have the data to do our own individual research, and I'd like to see if this can come in front of the council.
Sure, absolutely.
As a resolution or order in this case. Okay? In the future, great. Mrs. Risco, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, moving along. Next is workshop, a possible formation of an agricultural advisory committee. Let's go with a little bit of background. So over the last several months, the mayor's ad hoc group has been working on potential ordinances for submission out to planning board. We are coming down to what we think is the end result of that work and accumulation of that work. A loose time frame is as follows. We have our next agricultural mayor's ad hoc committee meeting on February 11th at 5:30, I believe here in chamber, if not in chamber, over in the community room. At that point, it's hopefully we're going to have something finalized. We're then going to present a motion to send this to the planning board at our February 25th meeting. At that point, it'll go to the planning board. It will also go to the state of Maine, Department of Agriculture, for state statute says a 90-day minimum review period, or up to 90-day review period. That's allowed them to review all the ordinance language, and it's mandated when you do anything different to ordinances governing agriculture. Now, they did already review a lot of our existing ordinance, and very little, if you look at it from a percentage standpoint, is potentially changing. So it might be less than 90 days. At that same time, the planning board will have review process too. We want to make sure it balances up well with the comp plan, so on and so forth. And then probably in late May, June, the ordinance will come from planning board up to council for appropriate readings, 2 votes, et cetera. In the meantime, though, because of the way it's been kind of structured so far, there is room and actually necessity for a council commission, an advisory commission on agriculture, similar in form to what the consultants report recommended. Again, at that point, it's different, right? So with that kind of groundwork laid, I'm going to turn it over to Councilor Rosani and Councilor Fournier. As we talked about before, they're the city council reps on the mayor's ad hoc committee. They've been involved with it. They understand where this advisory committee needs to come into to help with confirmation on agricultural activities and so forth. So this is just really an open discussion with the council to see what the makeup of that council committee is going to look like, advisory committee. That's a mouthful. Okay, so I'll turn it over to you two, and councilors, go for it.
I just want to sort of frame this discussion by saying and asking from Councilor Fournier and the mayor that on the meeting on Monday the 11th, that we will be looking at a number of discussions that have occurred in the past to make sure that we've addressed the issues. New information has been submitted over time, maybe a little bit outside of our schedule that we want to, but I would hope that we would have looked at the things that have come through, and then decided this is something that we want to incorporate or not. So that on the Monday, it's not that we're looking at what we assume is the final structure of the Ag Committee, Advisory Committee, but that we're going to take under advisement information that we have in terms of what this Ag Committee will look like. Ag Advisory Committee, I want to make sure that we get the language correct.
We need an acronym or something smooth.
Tag
It's a
on it.
mouthful.
Tag
Councilor
another
Fournier,
one.
does it seem that way to you, that on Monday we still?
It does, because at this point, we have looked at a previous report where recommendations were made, and then this committee took over to further study where we go with the ag zone, and what drove this committee to be formulated was the whole area around the 50% and the 100, less than 10 acres, and the concern regarding farmers needing to be able to build on their property if they're openly farming, and if they want to have family living with them or themselves be living on their property. But that 10-acre rule was stopping a lot of them from doing that. So that's what started that. And we talked about our other options as to how we can preserve, the properties and also allow, building to take place that is going to be controlled. So our committee worked on definitions. We worked on those two significant concepts, and we're looking at what was done before. So our work is not, the work on this is not done. So in other words, we definitely need to hear from, again, go back and the next committee be formulated with people who have vested interest in this, and we have to be careful, what categories of people are going to be involved with this, because we need to have a bird's eye view from many perspectives before we actually dive in and say, this is what's going to happen.
Thank you, Councilor Fournier. I guess what I want to put out there to the council is I want to make sure that we look at everything that has come to us that doesn't get us off track from this work, but there have been, over time, information that's come to us, and even recently, about an Ag Committee and about the ordinance. And I hope that we can also look at that, consider it, but also move forward.
Correct.
Do you want to?
There's a lot of information
You want
to
to
take in.
transition into the formulation of the council's agricultural advisory committee at this point, or commission?
Sure.
Yes.
Well, what is it now, a commission or an advisory committee? Because I know there's two different things. You did.
Advisory
You
commission.
said it 3 times.
Advisory.
Do I have to say it 3 times right now?
Yeah.
Advisory commission, advisory commission, advisory commission.
It's a commission.
Commission.
Okay, so it's,
And hey, listen, y'all can change the wording of that too. The point is, in talking with city staff and internally here, a commission it's advisory, okay? It's an advisory role. This is not to supplant the planning board. This is not in any way like the bike ped committee that has some absolute powers. The purpose, when we talked about it in past meetings, was to enhance agriculture as an industrial sector, to really help promote agriculture, to help promote timber harvesting, to help promote sustainability within the zone itself, and to be a resource, and also to have some ability to look at, whether or not people are actually following their farm plan.
That's right.
I use that term loosely.
That's right.
So, there's a couple things that obviously need to happen, and this is all in a parallel track to the ordinance. Obviously, if the ordinance is not approved by council, then the committee itself, or the advisory committee, changes, okay, in nature. So this is ideally the first of a long period of conversations in order to come up with something that's effective, that complements new ordinance, and that helps move agriculture as an industrial sector forward. So that was the concept. So
Well, one last comment. I just want to make sure that it's extremely important that we understand the role of the advisory commission in terms of making recommendations or making policy.
Yeah, and that's where it gets, I mean,
And how it interfaces with the planning board.
yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this for so many years, it's getting tiring because
We
we
would
keep
like to
taking
see
steps
it come to
backwards.
closure at some point. This is our goal, but we're making sure that, you know, we're listening to all people who have something to say about it, looking at a lot of written information over the years.
Well, I guess
Many hours have been spent.
my question, Mayor, is that this is a 15-minute thing, but we certainly are going to talk about this a lot more, I would think.
This is just an opening,
Yep.
kind of, okay. And I'd be very curious to see, or hear what everybody in the council has to say about it. I mean, by no means will anything be concluded during
Yeah.
15 minutes, but it's a starting point, and we do need to start somewhere.
Well, I agree with that for sure. It's just that, you know, since we started this, and of course, I was against the study to begin with because I knew that really it wasn't going to get us much for what we have already, except those three items we were talking about. The 10-acre rule, the 50% rule, and possibly forming a commission that would help regulate parts of the ag zone. And a combination of rezoning certain areas that wouldn't fall under that purview because they've been rezoned. But as long as they're zoned ag, then certain parameters could be worked out. But those first two, the 50% rule and the 10-acre rule, were the biggest obstacle.
Yes.
And I just wish that we could get that done and over with completely. But if we're having an advisory, it goes back, unless we change the ordinance or have a commission that is going to have the purview to make exceptions to that existing ordinance.
If I could just
As
clarify
opposed to
that.
a
So the
planning
ordinance itself will address a 50% income rule and the 10-acre minimum.
It does now, it already does.
No, but it changes, it modernizes.
Well, maybe we
it.
got to wait till we see what that ordinance looks like before we
So
talk about anything else.
and we can absolutely wait, and then at that point, if the ordinance is in effect and voted on and approved by the council, we'll just have to have a waiting period, because part of the ordinance refers to this advisory committee, okay, for guidance with regards to meeting income requirements and so forth. So one can't happen without the other. Then that's, if the council wants to do that, it's fine. You know, just so you know that it's, the way it's written in the draft of the modernization of the ordinance, it refers to this advisory commission, or committee, excuse me. So that's why there's some timing issues.
Okay, well,
Councilor Hayes?
I guess the meeting question, advisory commission advises who? Or what body?
It's up to you guys. That's why it's an open conversation. I'm just taking notes.
Where
Well,
will
and
we
I
go
guess,
from here?
to follow that up, it would seem to me that part of the planning board, or under the planning board, there's a conservation, I'm not sure if that's a committee or commission. Committee.
That's separate, that's not under the planning board. That is
But
separate.
but they sort of, well, maybe I don't understand, but to me, it would seem that this advisory commission would report to the planning board, because any suggestions that they make, I think, would be treated by the planning board. They would then make recommendations up to the council.
To the city council
That's only
after
if
that.
the
Right.
ordinance changed, because currently, right now, based on the last two items we just talked about, there's nothing that can be done there, you know, but if we see a rewrite in the ordinance, that'll change how much power the planning board has. I mean, obviously, the 50% rule and the 10-acre rule is pretty hard and steadfast.
That's hard, that's hard.
So you can have advisory committee all day long say, well, we recommend that you offer an exception in this area, and if they have no power to do so, the planning board has no real power to go against that. They have to go with current ordinance, but if we have a new ordinance or something different to look at, that may change the makeup of what this does. But
Right.
having a commission with that power wouldn't necessarily have to have a new ordinance written up, not completely.
And by definition, an advisory committee doesn't have rulemaking or power or authority. It's advisory.
Right.
So,
And the concept of going from one committee or commission or advisory board or whatever, from one to another, we're providing a system of checks and balances here. Because, you know, if you have just one body making all of those decisions and bringing it to the city council, then we're missing a couple of steps. So we feel that we need the opinions of more people as a system of checks and balances, and the advisory committee would be carefully constructed so that we have the right people who represent.
Well, again, getting back to what Councilor Hayes says, who are they going to advise? Now, if they're going to advise council, that means council's got to make a decision before it goes to planning board, and that just adds another layer of bureaucracy before it gets to planning
The
board.
advisory board
If the advisory committee's going to answer to the planning board, then
Planning committee.
then council would not get involved unless there was an exception to an ordinance, that we had to
Comes back to us
change an
after they-
ordinance or rezone something. It's the only time we get involved in it. Anytime you have that's in the planning board, as long as they're following the purview of the ordinance and Maine state law and local law, they can do what they feel they need to do without us. It's only when they need to change something that we get involved.
Right.
So the advisory committee wouldn't be advising us on anything, it'd be
No.
advising the planning board if it was
Advising the
going
planning
to do
board.
that. So
That's right. That's the
that's-
intention.
absolutely.
And from the planning board comes to us.
Since we haven't seen the ordinance, it's kind of hard to say what a committee be advising on. I would think that the ordinance would have to come first. And then we could see what we're trying to, what kind of machine we're trying to run here before we hire the laborers to tweak it or whatever, to say what maintenance should be done on it or whatever. I would think we need to see the ordinance first, because,
I think we need to see both at the same time.
well, I can't visualize that.
I think our hope, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor Poirier, that on Monday that we will hopefully be able to address both of the things that Councilor Young, that everybody is talking about, and that is the ordinance itself, and then and it's called here an agricultural advisory board. So I hope that we can clarify what board, commission, and committee. I mean, it's important that we understand what
Wording is
those,
everything.
and I don't know if Eric Cousins or whoever helps us, but to make sure that we have that language clear on Monday as well, and what the responsibilities of those three things are, and how they differ. And my hope is that on Monday, we consider what we've done so far. We talk about things that we might not have considered, but that we also come out of that with both, because we need both, as you said. How does the commission or board, who do they talk to? What is their responsibility? What are the powers that they have? And then where does it go after that? And the ordinance will define that. So we're fine-tuning it.
So if I could just, listening to everything, I mean, does it make sense? This is a question, that once the mayor's ad hoc committee is done with the ordinance modernization and then it's submitted up to, with your approval, to planning board and the state, you want to keep that committee going with the sole purpose of working on a definition and membership of a potential agriculture advisory board, and kind of work through that before it comes back up for more debate or more conversation?
That's a suggestion you're making?
Suggestion, it's just a suggestion. I'm just trying to listen to what Councilor Young and Councilor Hayes and everybody are saying, and if it's, looking at both at the same time or working at this, we do have a natural, 3-month window here while it's winding its way through the state to look at that board, and councilors can be as involved if they want or not.
Could we hear from all councilors?
Absolutely, yeah, no, I was just throwing out a suggestion on that
And
one.
then get back to
Yeah.
that, and Councilor Young has already spoken. Councilor Walker, do you have any thoughts?
Speechless?
I've talked at almost every meeting that we've had, so, I mean, most people know how I feel and think about this.
Councilor Gary, do you have thoughts at this time?
I think the Ag Commission should have more power than what you guys are trying to put it out to be. I think they should have more of a direct say, and I'm not sure if we're going to totally get to where I think it should go. I too have gone to every single meeting, and I have listened to a lot of the different farmers and the different groups. I mean, I have faith that the mayor's group is doing some good. It's gone a little further than the past group, but I'm not sure if they've hit the target yet.
If I may, I wonder if, again, on Monday, we do our due diligence and the best we can, considering the things that other counselors have said, and come up with something that people can then respond to. I think we're trying to anticipate some of what may come out of this, whereas we have something that people can respond to, we can then bring it back, and the council can say, as Councilor Gary said, I don't think this goes far enough, and we can have discussion in that way. Because there are a lot of unknowns, and without you all seeing the ordinance and us making some suggestions as to what the Ag Advisory Commission looks like, it's hard to anticipate, for you all to anticipate what this looks like. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, but I think we've got sort of one more step for the committee, the Mayor's Committee, to look at. Again, considering all the information that has come to us, to make sure that we have really done our due diligence and addressed information that has come to us.
So, how does everybody feel about that? What Councilor Lozani said?
Yeah,
Keep
we need
working
more
through it.
information, you know, just before we talk about anything.
Okay, good. Any other comments on that? If not, we'll let Councilor Lozani and Councilor Forney drive this process post-Monday, or starting on Monday, the 11th. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Good. Thanks all for your time. I think this is worthwhile just to talk about it and kind of get a feel where everybody's coming from. So we're going to move on now. We have an executive session to consult with the city attorney to discuss legal rights and responsibilities. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion from Councilor Zania and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor, excuse me. Opposed? Abstain? None being? We will now stand in executive session. declare the council out of executive session. We have an executive session regarding a poverty abatement pursuant to 36 MRSA, Section 841, with possible action during the meeting under new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
I have a second from, I've got a motion from Councilor Fournier and a second from Councilor Hayes. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? None being. We're now in executive session by a vote of 6-0. we go. Great, thank you. I declare council out of executive session. I'll now call to order the meeting of February 4th, 2019. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to be moving along here. There are no consent items on tonight's agenda, so we're going to move on to the minutes. We have the minutes of the January 28th, 2019 regular council meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? None being, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the January 28th, 2019 regular city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Fournier and a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? None being. Minutes are approved by vote 7-0. Now we're going to move on to communications, presentations, and recognitions. First, we have Mr. John Blanchette and Ms. Jennifer Grover and Ms. Karen Martin from Community Little Theater here to provide us with an update. Please come forward, and thank you for waiting a couple minutes late.
No problem. Thank you.
I appreciate you being here tonight.
So, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and members of the public, I'm sorry. You can take the actor out of the theater, but I've been taught not to put my back to an audience, so I've got to kind of do this more openly.
Well,
First of all,
John, I appreciate that. We'll accept that, but we need portables. Because a good actor needs good audio-visual support, right?
Going to get a mic in a minute.
let me see if I can do my best to project so that everybody will be able to hear me. First of all, I'd like to begin by saying thank you very much to the city of Auburn.
Can't forget the people at
Even
home.
better.
Yeah.
I'm in my element now. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to the city of Auburn for the gift of being the trustee of the building, Community Little Theater as we know it. The Great Falls School has been a tremendous boon to us. We have a great deal of space. We're able to house all of our costumes now, properties, all the set and be able to build sets on premises and be able to rehearse on a regular basis. This has been a tremendous boon to us, and it is something that we are so thankful for on a daily basis. Of course, our greatest asset is sometimes our greatest challenge. The building was built in 1917. I'm half that age, and sometimes getting out of bed in the morning can be problematic. Our building has some issues that we are working diligently to take care of. We have done a lot of work on cleaning up, on painting, and just generally trying to spruce up the building, making it better and a more safe and fun environment for all. In 1978, the building underwent a major refurbishment, the auditorium in particular. But since then, we haven't done much as a whole. So we started on phase 2, only 40 years later. Well, you know, that's not bad in some cases. And one of those factors was the installation of a catwalk. The catwalk goes above the audience and allows us to work on lighting. We were in desperate straits. Our lighting designer is 68 years old, going up a 25-foot aluminum ladder carrying 2 instruments in either hand. Not a safe situation. We knew we had to do something different. We were very fortunate to get a bequeath from one of our former members, as well as to have some great success in grant writing. This was our first year where we received a grant from the Davis Foundation of $20,000. This was huge and enabled us to get this particular project underway and completed, along with the help of Cody Crane. They were wonderful and instrumental in making everything happen. So, where do we go from here? We are trying to build a capital campaign. We've been sitting down together, brainstorming what are the things we need to work on. Certainly one of them is insulation, as well as heating and cooling for the building. How many of you are patrons or have been to Community Little Theater within the past year? Were you there in the winter or the summer? If you were there in the summer, you were very warm. If you were there in the winter, you were very cold. The September show is our best show. It's just right. Everything else is a bit of a struggle. So we are looking at replacing our boiler. And this is going to be a large project requiring a lot of funds. So we're starting on a capital campaign. We're calling it CLT Needs TLC. We're hoping that's going to have great appeal to the public. Other issues that we're looking at are seating, as well as security and refurbishing our lobby to make it more warm, more inviting all around. So I've told you a lot about the theater ER. Let me tell you about the theater RE, the people in the community. We have a vibrant membership, people who are very active and looking to make Community Little Theater a presence within the community. We have grown our membership, and we are going to continue to do so. One of our greater successes is with our educational program, which Jen Groover will be talking about in just a moment. But some other ways in which we've grown, we're networking. We are known as a location between Bangor and Saco for costuming. We rent costumes out to local high schools and community theaters. We've had great success with this, and it's become a money-making venture for us. So it's kind of a win-win situation for all the groups working with us, as well as for us. We've also done networking with LA Arts, with the LA Film Festival. Excuse me, my eyes are not what they used to be. And Maine's Got Talent, as well as other groups that have come in and rented the facility. We're hoping to make it more available to people so that it is a multi-use facility. Some other factors that have helped with our growth is our newsletter. We're reaching more and more people on a regular basis, as well as multimedia. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We had a 75th anniversary celebration, which is all about celebrating our past. We'd like to make our 80th celebration all about our future. It happens to fall perfectly in time with Auburn's sesquicentennial. So we're really proud to be able to have that linkage. The City of Auburn has been here for 150 years. Community Little Theater has been here for 80 years. We are the second oldest community theater in Maine, continuously running community theater, and one of the oldest in all of New England. And I think that says a lot about the people and about what we have created at CLT. So I also want to thank the City of Auburn for choosing CLT as one of the host sites for the sesquicentennial. We'll be happy to welcome all of you so that you get a chance to see what we're all about. One of the most fun adventures for people is coming up to our costume rooms to see what's been done. We have 5 rooms at this point filled with clothing. Jennifer and her sister have been instrumental in culling some of those items. Literally, we got to the point where we can't even find what we have anymore. So we've been pulling some of the older items out, getting rid of those, making it more accessible. And they've had some great success with that as well, but it's an ongoing project, as you can imagine. That is all I want to say about the Theater RE. I want to segue now to Jennifer so that she can tell you about our educational program and one of our greater successes with CLT. Jennifer?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jennifer McClure-Groover, and I am the Vice President at Community Little Theater, but I also am the Director of the Youth Program. So I direct the Summer Youth Musical Program, along with Director Ashley Hodgkin, who directs the Teen Program. We run a really exciting summer camp for local youth. We have kids from Auburn, from Lewiston, and surrounding communities who join us to learn about the arts. In the summertime, basically the very first Saturday that the kids are out of school, until mid-July, we are working with kids and we put on full-scale musicals. We are an educational program. We're run by production teams that consist of all school teachers who spend their summers working with kids in order to help them learn about the dramatic arts, learn about theater etiquette, learn about the process. And we're building a community of actors that we feel is not only learning and growing, especially in relation to literacy, but also they're able to contribute back into the community because we see a lot of our kids at community theater auditions, and they're very active in their school theaters. And when they're with us in the summer, they learn how to do things like stand up in front of a room full of people and introduce themselves. We watch kids blossom in ways that even their parents never think might happen, providing a safe and supportive place for them to create, which is really exciting. Some of our programs that we have put on in the past have turned out full-scale musicals such as Lion King Jr., and there is nothing like watching a bunch of 50 kids creating the savannah in Africa, and grown-ups are crying. It's a beautiful thing. And what's most amazing is we watch these young children and teens do this work, and they completely support themselves. They've learned all the components of theater, so that as the production team, we're actually sitting in the booth along with the audience watching this magic happen. Our teens are really focused on learning a lot of the classics. Some of the shows that they've put on recently are Guys and Dolls and Anything Goes, and we're just trying to get them back in touch with some of Broadway's oldest, most traditional shows, and that's been really fun for them as well. Not only do we help our youth, but we also reach out to provide educational opportunities to adults. We welcome and encourage people to come to our theater for tap workshops and dance workshops. We've been able to put on some pretty exciting shows. A couple seasons back, we put on Chicago, and we offered 2 nights of a tap, not tap, it was a Chicago, it was a Bob Fosse type, which was the choreographer, workshop. And so people could come and actually learn how to dance this way before coming to audition. And that was open to anybody who wanted to just come and dance. They didn't have to then audition. And that was heavily attended. We also are providing yoga classes to the community. And we have a member who is providing yoga workouts that are set to musical theater songs. So that's a lot of fun as well. Finally, what I want to close with is just an anecdote. I'm a school teacher, and I had a colleague who recently attended a workshop at Auburn Middle School. And while she was there, she was sitting in the music classroom, and there was a chart paper. And on the chart, there was a heading, and it said, "Where is music?" And one of the the actual first answer on the tablet that had been, I'm assuming, called out by one of the students, the answer was CLT. And she took a picture of that and sent it to me, and I promptly sent it to John and Karen Martin, our executive director, who I'm sorry could not be with us tonight. She's not feeling well. But I sent that to them, and I thought about the impact of what CLT might have on our community, and the fact that when a child is asked, where is music, that the first place they think of is CLT, brought me great joy and made me feel very proud. And we thank you for your time, and we're really proud to be part of the city of Auburn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll say I think it's safe to assume on behalf of everyone on the council how integral CLT has been part of our community now for, you said 78 years? 60?
80.
80. That's right. Yeah, it's a long time. I remember the first performance. You were in it too, weren't you, John?
I won't tell if you don't.
Okay, fair enough. I was in my first, maybe even last one, I think I was 10 years old in Maine. For a kid who's fresh to Maine in the area, it was a pretty, it was a very beneficial in multiple ways experience. So I'm sure you've continued to do that with children and adults for years. So thank you. I'd like to start off with a question or two.
Certainly.
Just to kind of understand capital campaign future. As you know, and you can't avoid it, we've been talking about our new high school performing arts center. Mm-hmm. And there's been conversations and comments with our superintendent talking about making that auditorium available as a home for CLT in lieu of Great Falls School. Is that something that your executive committee has discussed? If so, what's your thoughts? We just want to make sure that we're hearing what we need to hear going into our decision-making process from you.
Absolutely. About 6 or 7 months ago, I was approached by Sue Gavorsky, who I believe is on the committee, asking that same question, is this something that we would be interested in? I said, send me an email, get me in. I'm happy to sit in and discuss. Certainly, we would have some concerns about how that would frame out. One of the great advantages of having the building is that we have access on a more regular basis. And we understand the need for security in a school and limitations of keys. So that would be a potential concern. But at the same time, it's not something we're closed off to by any stretch. Yes, we just did install a catwalk, but that doesn't mean that that's not everything. And if it makes sense, we are certainly open to that and happy to discuss it.
If you could, maybe as a way of helping the conversation move along, because I mean the clock's ticking. Maybe if you and the board could come up with a list of concerns, questions, things that need to be answered, so we could bring them maybe through Councilor Zania or Councilor Young, who sit in the school building committee, or Councilor Fournier, who's my representative of the school committee, can bring those to the forefront and make sure they get answered. Because either way, if it's a go or a no go, it's just good to know.
Be happy to do that for you.
Really, really do appreciate it. Open up to the councilor for any questions or comments. Councilor Zania?
I felt like we should have clapped after. We don't usually get presentations that are that energetic. Thank you.
We can clap now.
Oh, well, by all means.
Just a small question. What is the seating capacity at CLT?
We are licensed for 380 seats.
Okay.
We actually technically have a few more, but we always reserve a few seats for ushers and for other people who volunteer on the show.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you had talked about your capital campaign and different things, do you have a full-fledged plan, and is it in writing in full detail?
It is a very nascent plan, meaning we all have a bunch of ideas. We have yet to coalesce that into a structured plan with a set of priorities, a hierarchy, and the costs involved in that plan. We have some thoughts, yes. It's not by any means crystallized. That's something we hope to develop over the next few months.
Do you have a ballpark cost? I mean,
we have run everything from, well, for example, if we look at just the heating and cooling system, we're looking at maybe as low as $100,000, as low as, I'm in the arts and I can actually say that out loud without squirming.
Sound like you're in government.
But if we look at the full gamut of some of the things we want to do, we could be looking at a $1 million fundraising campaign.
Yeah, so range. Anybody, any other comments or questions?
I just have a question. My daughter and I were in Little Theater quite a few years ago, musicals, and we were in Maine. I wonder if you were a little boy in there at the time.
Yeah.
We've had 2 productions of MAME since I've been a member, so it's
this was quite a while ago.
83-ish, 4.
That was the first one, yes.
That would be it. That would be
I
it.
was really talented then, wasn't I?
Yeah,
remember.
very talented young man. See who he's become today. That's great. And that's why you need to be working with students, and I really appreciate that because my daughter, took advantage of that. I have a question about the likelihood of your community Little Theater moving into the high school, the new high school. I'm thinking of your costumes. I mean, I've been to the rooms. I know how many rooms you have. And my concern would be, will there be room, if you did that, just as a forethought, would there be room for all of your costuming? Would there be room for you to operate any time of day and through the evening? You'd have to be assured that you can be there in the evening.
Absolutely.
I'm one who believes in the schools being open as long as possible during the day and evening, because we taxpayers pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think about those?
One of the things that we could look at, too, is off-site storage for something like that. In the past, CLT had a clubhouse over on Sylvan Avenue,
Right.
way back in the day, well before my time. Might still be within the mayor's time, but
My time.
well before my time. And that was a great facility for rehearsals, for group meetings, as well as for storage of scenery and other items. So that's always another option that we could explore.
Okay, well, thank you very much, both of you, for your time, your energy, and your commitment to the arts and your commitment to Auburn. We definitely need to talk more about, obviously, our sesquicentennial celebration.
Absolutely.
And which is this year, in case anyone didn't know. Mr. Manager. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Walker has something.
Yeah, you mentioned that your numbers have grown. Can you tell us some idea of from where to where?
Well, Jen, do you want to speak to the kids that have participated?
So several years back, maybe 7 or 8 years back, we had one summer youth musical program, and that would take care of the needs of kids who had exited grade 3 up until the summer after their junior year of high school. And at that point, we had about 40 kids attending our camp. Our numbers grew so large so quickly that we had to quickly split into 2 different camps. And so we had a youth program for kids who exited grade 3 up until exiting 6th grade. And then we had a teen camp for kids who were exiting grades, well, they could choose, once they exited grade 6, they could kind of decide to go with the teens or the youth. But basically, 7th grade through junior year of high school. We grew so quickly, so fast, and that's just continued to thrive. One of the most beautiful parts about the program is that our teens are really what make the youth program possible. And I can explain that. We have counselors. Safety and supervision is of utmost importance to us. And so with 30 to 40 kids running around, we really need to have many eyes on. And so we have teens who have to apply. They have to fill out like a job application, if you will. They have to go through an interview process, and they get to apprentice with a member of the production team. So we have an assistant to the director, an assistant to the choreographer, and so forth. And they also serve as our counselors, and they supervise small groups of the youth. And so it's been a really wonderful opportunity for our teens to also gain leadership opportunities and learn different parts of production as well. So our numbers doubled, and they just continued to thrive. And I think my favorite part of that story is that oftentimes when the kids come, the parents come along with them. And so I myself have had the joy of welcoming back to the theater people who are sort of in my age range who haven't participated in a long time, but now that their kids are interested, they're back. And we're watching families take part in productions together. And so we're talking about, you know, families of 5 who are all taking part in one show and making memories that will last them a lifetime. So it's a great thing to see.
The Groovers come immediately to mind in that group.
Another question for you. When you first started at the old high school,
Right.
you had very few weekends that you were booked. I've noticed that it's a lot more. Do you have any numbers to tell us on that end? I mean, we got 52 weekends a year, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I look at what is your use now, and what do you think you're doing?
That's a great question. We have 5 shows, 5 main stage shows each year, each running 2 weekends, so there's 10 weekends right there. The Summer Youth and Teens program each have the same weekend, so they're literally going back to back with one another. So that's at least 11 weekends. We also have other events that may come in that we'll rent out the space for or bring other spaces in. And, you know, that'll probably bring us up to 15 or 16, depending on how many different people apply at various times. So about a quarter of the year, the weekends are definitely taken up with performances. And then, of course, there's the rehearsal period. The average rehearsal period for most shows is anything from 7 to 10 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Thank you for your time. Have a great night. Look forward to seeing your next performance.
Thank you very much. And I would like to invite all of you to come to Little Theater. So I'm going to ask if there's a performance this year. Our next few shows are Avenue Q, which is an interesting show. You might want to check that out. 5 women wearing the same dress, and some guy I know is directing Mamma Mia over the summer, which is supposed to be a hot ticket. I am going to invite you an open invitation. If you would like to come to one of the shows, email me, and I'd be happy to have you as a guest.
Is the mayor's box still open?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Sure.
It's in the back alley. I know. Okay, very
Bill,
good.
we got to
Thank
build
you.
we got
Thank
to
you.
build
Look
the
forward
mayor's
to it.
box.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Next up, I'd like to invite Mark Goslin, Director of Recreation and Tourism, to the front of the room. He's going to give us an update on, basically, his department. Mr. Goslin. And Rory, I'm sorry. And Rory, I can't remember your last name, sir.
Mushlin.
Say that one more time.
Mushlin.
Mushlin. Yep. Rory Mushlin, Director of Norway Savings Bank Arena. Very good.
Excellent.
Or something I might have gotten that
Mayor, council, staff, thank you very much for having us up here. It allows us an opportunity to share what's going on with this new department. I think there are some people who still have questions about the overview of the new department and why it was created and how it was created. So, you know, any good department, you need a lot of good teammates, a lot of good team members as part of that department. And I was lucky enough to move into this position and have an opportunity to come into this position and already have a great team set in place. We have our Deputy Director, Sabrina Best. As you guys know, she spearheaded the New Year's event with a lot of our department heads. Great event that I think a lot of our community wants to see happen next year and annually. And she does a lot of great things on the recreation side. Jeremy Gatcomb is our Deputy, our Superintendent of Recreation. He's also our General Manager of the Ingersoll Turf Facility since day one. He's been doing a great job not only creating relationships with our current user groups, but constantly going after newer user groups outside of a 15-minute to half-an-hour drive outside of Auburn. And you know, that facility is bringing in a lot of individuals that are not just right here living in the city of Auburn. You get a lot of people who are coming from Augusta, Westbrook, Topsom, and other areas of the state to come utilize the facility, and he's doing a great job there. And sitting to my right is Rory Mushlin. We were lucky enough to start, I think you started a day before me, a day or two before me. Comes very well resumed, you know, has spent some time at the Barclay Center in Brooklyn, San Jose as well with the Sharks. Brings, I will tell you, just in the 2 months that I've been able to work with him, has brought a good fresh look to the arena, and we also have, never mind this staff, but the people that really need to be thanked are the people that are there working right now. and running those facilities. We have a lot, Rory's got a great staff of operators that make sure that the playing surface is going, as well as Jeremy over at Ingersoll, and Sabrina with our rec coordinators and all the people that actually put on our programs. So what's nice is now that the staff is all one. Before, Norway was running on its own, Ingersoll was running on its own, and Recreation was running on its own. Now putting everyone all in one department, it allows us to maybe streamline some processes, allows us to do some, evaluate things from a decision-making ability, and also corporate partners. We are able to involve corporate partners from a lot of different ways, and how do we activate that, and and how we get them involved in the city. So just a couple updates. Recreation. I don't know if you guys know, but we have the only men's slow pitch draft league in the state. And what I mean by men's slow pitch draft league, most of the time men's leagues and women's leagues who do, recreationals, team captain gets their friends together and, will play. What happens with our men's slow pitch draft league is we have a couple, captains, they get together and they select people from a pool of athletes and softball players, just like the professionals do. And they're getting together at Gippers on March 5th. They're going to do some fun stuff there, and they're going to create that. Started off with 9 teams. Now there's 18 teams. Now there's a senior division. There's an over 40 division. There is also an 18+ division. We have people traveling from, again, different parts of the state to participate in this league. Right now, we have our current brochure out for winter and spring. Our summer brochure is coming out in April, so be on the lookout for that. We're getting the programs ready for that. As you know, our senior center is moving forward. We're already starting to collaborate with some different entities. We talked to Joe Dill with the Maine Senior Games. They're in need for a space for badminton. I don't know if you guys played badminton when you were younger, but it's a sport right now that's popular in the Maine Senior Games, and right now Maine doesn't have a team that's represented, and they don't actually have a place to play. So we're actually now talking to them about how we might be able to bring that to Auburn, and get either some programming up started first, but then also build into maybe being a site for people to try out for the Maine Senior Games. And I want to recognize, part-time staff is sometimes hard to find, especially part-time staff who care and who are passionate about things. And right now, we got 3 part-time individuals that are working at the Recreation Department who are doing a fantastic job. Jamie works with our senior population, and Mike over at the Senior Center. We have Lori who's working with PAL, and Haley who's doing a mixture of all kinds of things with the 150th as well as other events. So I just wanted to recognize them for their hard work, and we're lucky to have them, especially for people who it's not their full-time job, but yet they still have the same passion. So we're extremely grateful. Quick update about the Ingersoll turf facility. This month, just in February alone, we were running at about 86% capacity, just in February, which means that we're running past prime time. We're actually still renting time in some of the off times in the month of February. So it's pretty busy. It's very active. Right now we have an indoor softball league with over 150 girls that are going to be participating in it at the turf facility. We also have a mixture of indoor high school soccer, which is a mixture of boys and girls that are going to be playing. There's going to be over 16 teams with that. And really the busy season is when the spring sports are going to start getting ready before, if we don't have an early spring, they need a place to go. So March 25th, really we're going to kick it up even more with some rentals with a lot of the spring sports, baseball, softball. You'll get some lacrosse, getting ready for their seasons. So real quickly, we wanted to kind of go over, recreation in Ingersoll. We did want to spend a little more time with Norway Savings Bank Arena, just simply because, there's a lot of moving parts there, and we wanted to kind of spend a little bit more time and give you some updates there. First and foremost, with anything that we do, what's nice about the combination of the departments is, corporate partnerships is such a huge piece for us with the Norway Savings Bank Arena. but also with Ingersoll. So right now, the current status with some of our corporate partnerships, you're noticing with me coming in, there's been a little lack of communication with some of our corporate partners. Right now, we're building up on that communication. The positive report there is, typically in corporate partnerships, you have some retention where you have some partners that leave, every year. It's kind of, sometimes that happens. Marketing dollars get shifted. As of right now, I don't really have any to report of any that are leaving. A lot of the conversations have been positive. There are some that I thought were going to leave in my conversations with them, and they ended up coming back on board with us and renewing their corporate partnerships. So I'm hoping to have a better answer of a number-wise of where we sit in a few months because the renewals right now are a priority for us is renewing our current agreements with our corporate partners. And what's nice about this combined department now is when we look at new partners coming to support these facilities, we're able to kind of customize something for them around what they're interested in. Some might be interested in recreation programs, and we can get them involved in our recreation programs. Or some might be just interested in Ingersoll, or might be interested in all of the above, right? So what's nice is now we're able to kind of tailor these packages and these partnerships to make sure we're hitting on, they're investing in us. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing and activating their relationship and making sure they're getting what they spend in advertising dollars with us. And if we can activate and do more things with the populations that we have, that's what we're going to try to do. Moving forward to events at Norway, some great things to talk about. First and foremost, minus these non-hockey events, Rory just this past weekend, sorry it's not in the presentation because it happened just this past weekend, Rory put on a DJ skate for our public skate. We had concert lighting, we had DJ lighting, he brought in a DJ, and we were able to double what we normally get, actually more than double. Probably. What do you think it was?
We probably did an equivalent to about 3 weeks of our normal public skate on Saturday night in that one shot, and that's after expenses. So it was really successful. Again, it was promoted as a place to drop your kid off, have a safe environment for them for a couple hours, have parents go out to grab a bite to eat if they wanted to without their kids, but provide that safe environment. Another opportunity to bring, another opportunity for Auburn to have a place to go for their kids. It was great. It was really successful. DJ Brian C. did a fantastic job, who we brought in, and we along with the youth hockey that was going on the other side, or high school hockey, pardon me, there was a lot of positive feedback, and we look to continue to grow that. And then on Sunday, we hosted a public skate with a fundraising event for the Richards family, which was also able to raise about $800 for that family. And Brian Gagnon with the Auburn School Department had his Camp of Rock, and they played live music for our public skating session, hooked up to our PA, and that was another really successful event. So two really successful events this weekend.
So we're going to try to piggyback on some of those and strategically figure out how we can add those to the calendar on a regular basis. Outside of hockey, we are really busy with our current tenants. Everything from 10 in the morning to about 11:30 at night right now. So ice rentals are great.
6:30 in the morning.
Sorry, 6:30 in the morning. That's right, because we have Central Maine Community College and Bates College practicing at 6:30 in the morning. So ice rentals are fairly good right now. So coming into where we think some opportunities are is on the event side of things, when we actually take out the ice on rink number 1 come March. The Maine RV show is coming back. We are looking to solidify them into a commitment till 2022. They're extremely happy. They've been sold out since about November in booth space. We actually just got an email today that they actually want to start looking at outdoor space for vendors, because they're getting enough requests from vendors to almost put some more vendors in the parking lot. We're a little skeptical about that simply because of the time of year, but we're going to work with them on it and see how we might be able to accommodate their request. It is a great show. It brings a lot of people to the area. They're extremely happy about it. Also, the Comic Expo is coming back. Can't go too much into detail. He's still solidifying some things, but we have some new comic-type celebrities that will be coming to this year's show, which will be a great addition to this year's show on top of Optimus Prime. There will be a couple more Transformers that he's going to be bringing with him to the show on top of Optimus Prime. So another great show that
Date
hit,
on that? Do you have a date on that?
May 4th.
And the
May
main
4th.
RV show is what date?
March.
It says April on there, April 7th to 8th.
Yeah, it's usually April 7th and 8th. It's either late March, early April.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
It snowed last year.
So yeah, it was great last year. The true test of the event this year for them is the third year. First year, it was great because of a new venue, right? They knew a lot of people were going to come. Second year was more about the vendors, you know, of how many vendors they were going to keep. This year is really, can they really sustain the amount of people coming through the doors? So this will be a real tester for them this year that they're going to really kind of do some measurement with. Other things that are in the pipeline that we're pretty confident about, nothing's solidified in the last two bullets, but we are pretty confident that we're going to bring some form of business-to-business trade show to the Norway Arena in June, and then a hot tub trade show. We got contacted by a gentleman from Nashville, Tennessee. This was forwarded to us from the RV show. The RV show actually talked to this gentleman in Nashville and recommended the Norway Savings Bank Ice Arena to do a trade show. We contacted him, and right now we're pretty much 90% there, and he would be looking at doing two shows, one in May and one in September. So those are kind of some of the things that are kind of coming down the pipeline with events. One of the challenges, and the one thing that we're going to bring up, and one thing that we're looking to pursue to purchase, simply because of these events to keep moving them forward, is our event floor needs a little bit of updating. And during the tour, some of you saw the nature of our current floor. It served its purpose when we purchased it. You know, it was going to have a life of 3 to 5 years when we purchased it for a very inexpensive amount of money. It actually, we got a great return on that floor because we were able to get these types of events. At this point, we do need to kind of get a newer floor. These newer floors do range between $110,000 to $120,000. With Rory's connections in the industry, we were able to find one that's fairly new. It's actually the one that you see in this picture. It's a floor that you would find at any national arena like the TD Garden, Madison Square Garden, the Barclays Center. It is a pro deck floor. You know, he was able to find one for, we have it on hold for us right now, it's for $24,000, $24,700. So we're looking to try to move forward with that purchase to try to help us with, again, making sure that we're providing a great place for these events to happen. As you can see, I'll let Rory talk. Rory's a lot more experienced in this than I do. He can talk the language better than I do. So I'll let Rory kind of speak to the benefits of this specific floor versus the Homosoap floor that we currently have.
You know, I think the major difference right up front is that the Homosoap is falling apart. It's a soft, porous material that over time disintegrates, and having it be exposed to the cold and the ice, the moisture, that material does basically just wear down. And at this point, for those of you who are on the tour, we took a little corner and we're showing you, it literally is falling apart on us. What they ended up having to do last year for the RV show was not only put the floor down, but then put plastic over it to keep all the dust from spraying up and getting all over everybody, and also the walkways from being to the point where they wear down and they can puncture a hole right through to the ice. The ProDeck flooring system, this system was actually used at the University of Minnesota and was used just as a temporary solution for them. So it was purchased, it was rented to them for a short period of time until they purchased their own, and from that point has been sitting in storage. I was in Minnesota for the holidays, so I got to go see it in person, so I took these photos myself, which I believe easily this is a 10-year return on investment without a question. This system is in good shape. It's a hard polycarbon material, so that you could bring just about anything right onto it. If you look at TD Garden, when you see the basketball court out there, what that is it's the pro deck and literally the basketball court right on top of it. So it's a great opportunity for us to get something that especially trade shows and other shows have seen before. It opens opportunities to talk to promoters for concerts. I think it opens a lot of different opportunities for us to have something like that. And like Mark said, for a price of $24,000 versus the $120,000, $130,000 that you find a new floor, I think this is definitely a worthy investment for us. It also will decrease labor cost. A pro deck floor can be put down in about an hour and a half if you do it with a full crew, which is usually about 12 people. In the past, they've used about 7 to 8 to put down the Homosote, which took them about 6.5 to 7 hours. So I think we can cut that down in an immense amount of time, which would allow us to then use the facility the day before and the day after for hockey events while still being able to drop the floor down and host an event the following day. The waffle pattern you see on the bottom, that allows the pro deck to actually self-insulate the ice, which allows us to drop the ice temperature when it's covered as well, which then relates to a cost savings. The other piece to this is that on Rink 1, we're able to then our plan this year is to hold Rink 1 out for probably an additional month and a half from what we've done in the past. Until we sell out Rink 2, there's no point in putting Rink 1 back in. So I think that cost savings will be very relative. And then on top of that, we can then cover Rink 2 and host events on both sides at the same time for a weekend, but still host our regular hockey events during the week on the other side. So I think that's a big change. Beyond that, again, the change over time, it's much quicker. The pro deck is hard and you won't have to do any of the covering. We might have to tape a couple corners to make sure that everything gets secured. And there's what's called an ice dam, which basically is part of the rink, which holds it in place from shifting off the rink. But once that's said and done, this thing holds together nice and neatly. And then right away we can host an event on it. We don't have to do any additional work to cover the floor.
I mean, even some of the bigger events, a lot of people ask how they hold rodeo shows in arenas during hockey season because of all the dirt. Dirt's warm. Dirt is not friendly to ice at all. They actually lay down dirt on top of pro decks like this, and it protects the ice completely. Great system. Again, another reason why we're lucky to that we found Rory to have connections like this in the industry.
You have to do this every year, though, in order to justify return on investment.
Every year.
Next year.
100%.
At least one every year.
We also wanted to provide kind of a year-to-date where we sit financially with Norway. We know it is something that people want to know and they're concerned about. So what we did is Rory and I ran some numbers from July of 18 to the end of January, basically where we sit right now. So last year the revenues were around 480,000. The expenses were 726,000. There was a loss there of 246,000. Right now, where we sit right now in this current fiscal, our revenues are sitting at 530,000, with a decrease in the expenses a little bit, and then also showing less of a hit there. Moving forward, I mean, again, this is a budget that Rory and I didn't do or we adopted, and we're going to do our best to try to, maintain expenses as best as we can and drive revenue as much as we can in this fiscal year to make sure we're in a better position than we were last year. And then, again, continue to move that forward from year in to year out.
Mr. Collison, just to clarify, I think the manager did as well. When you're looking at expenses, we're talking about human expenses, operating expenses without or minus debt service, or is this inclusive of debt service?
Everything.
So the expense number is inclusive of debt?
Year-to-date, though.
Year-to-date.
Comparison year-to-date.
Yeah, comparison year-to-date.
That's not all of 2018.
That's not all.
Right.
So you're looking at July 1 to January 31st.
On
7 months.
18 and this year.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You got it. So I think that when we look at moving forward, it's about opportunity. And when we look at opportunity, I think it's opportunity looking past our area. It's how we bring It's talking about the sports tourism angle. It's talking about how we bring people to the arena and to the facility to use it that are outside our area, 30, 60 minutes out. And working with Rosemary Mosier in the GIS system, I was able to sit with her and we were able to kind of come up with a kind of a dashboard here that shows us a little bit more information about who we're trying to go after that are sitting like 60 minutes out, and what is the population base? What do we have to possibly look to? If we look at the population base that's sitting out just an hour's drive from Norway Arena, we're looking at about 500,000 people that are just sitting outside between 30 and 60 minutes of the arena. There's an opportunity to reach about 500,000 people. And they make anywhere between average about $56,000 a year. Those people within the 30 to 60 minute drive time, I think the one stat that I want you to look at is how much they spend in food and eating out annually. It's around $3,227 per household spending, for the year. So when they're coming to the Norway Savings Bank Arena, they're probably stopping, at one of our local, restaurants that are on Center Street or Buffalo Wild Wings or Longhorn. And how do we continue to get those dollars to come to the city of Auburn? And those events and those activities that we're doing right now are going to help us do that. I think when you look at the three stats here from an opportunity standpoint too, is if you look at the annual lifestyle spending, right? A person will spend $54 a year on sporting events. That could be tickets, that could be anything that what they consider maybe a sporting event. But if you look at the other spending amounts are the areas that we're trying to focus on, which is events, museums, concerts, those types of things. And, these types of people are spending $60, they're spending annually $72. If we're able to grab 2% of this out of that population, that's a significant amount of economic impact. That's just 2%. Never mind if we do a lot of things of what we could do to attract these people. So the reason why I wanted to show this is I want to try to dig deeper into these numbers to try to figure out what the arena is doing and what is the impact outside of just the general people coming through the door and how it's impacting our city. And if we're able to understand that, we're able to strategically find out what types of programs and what types of events might work to draw those types of people here. So just a quick snapshot of everything. Definitely wanted to leave some time for questions. Just didn't want to dominate the time. But thank you very much for letting Rory and I come speak and give you an update of where we sit.
Thank you very much for your time. I will, before I open it up to the council, one point for the folks from Community Little Theater up there too. I did see the annual spend on, and I'm sure you all did as well. There might be some nice cooperation, i.e. your zip codes of your ticket purchasers online, finding out where they're coming from, that we might be able to share with our departments and vice versa, because that might help with your marketing and target areas on both fronts, sports as well as culture. Take it a step further when you're tying in a great event and tying it into the same weekend as one of your performances.
For sure. I think you said it right. It's just a partnership. It's how do you strategically look at how we can help and how they can help us. That's what really kind of drives the numbers, really.
Thank you. I'm going to open up the council for questions on the presentation we just had. Council, any questions?
I just have one.
Councilor Fournier?
You have mentioned, with the statistics here, I know you're looking at that, and you've been working really hard. You guys have been really working very hard at getting, different people to come in different groups. Is there one thing that pops out in your mind in terms of what you want to go for next to help bring in more revenue so that we can bring that balance lower and lower? Because it's been a thorn in my side ever since it got built, which is not your...
The list is long. If you go in Rory's office, there's a whiteboard that we constantly work on, that we've continued. It was something that I did when I first was here 2 years ago. It's something that we continue to look at to this day, of all the events that, regardless of money, regardless of who's responsible for putting it on and planning it. If it was an idea, we put it up there. I would really love to see a concert if we can. It's just finding the right partnership, the right group. There's certain resources that we don't have outside of the floor that we need to hold a concert. So it's just finding the perfect equation to have a promoter come in to help us with some of those resources that we need to hold a concert. Knock on wood, there is a actual conversation going on right now. And I'm hoping to have an update on that in the next month. Can't really say too much about it simply because it is dealing with different media outlets and multiple partners. And we necessarily don't want to say anything right now when nothing's solidified. But a concert's big for us. I think we also want to get a couple more trade shows. We would love to do an outdoor show at the arena. We also, there's other trade show events that are out there that are kids related. We want to start kind of getting into some different demographics. Belinda Gary and I were also talking about doing something on the senior side with a senior show that is catered to a specific age population. So going on the younger side of things, there are also some great kid events that we could possibly bring. So I think once we kind of get this formula put into place of how we do it and how we work with these promoters, once we have that formula in place, we then can getting more specific and targeting specific demographics and getting specific partners involved. And I think that's where you'll see the growth really happen.
You get some great ideas, and I think a concert would bring a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, he did tell me it was Beyonce.
Doesn't matter.
Did I spell that? Did I say
I
pronounce
can
that
be the
correctly?
opening act.
Should I not have said that out loud?
Your front seat's gone right now.
Yeah, put me in the mayor's box.
If I may, real quick, just to piggyback on that, one of the things that I think we're looking at is how do we maximize what we already have?
Yeah.
We have ice usage, and doing an ice usage look at our overall aspect of how much ice we're selling. There's opportunity there as well. We're a hockey rink first, and then we're a lot of other things. Lacrosse. We have a great turf facility, but they're sold out. Maybe in the summer there's an opportunity to have a climate-controlled turf facility that we could offer box lacrosse. Box lacrosse is a big game. It's a big sport now, and it's played on a hockey rink, but just with turf. So yes, there's an expense with turf, but there's a lot of opportunities out there to look at different things. I just confirmed today the Androscoggin Fallen Angels are going to do a bout. So roller derby is coming to the arena this summer. So a lot of opportunity. One, let's maximize our ice usage. Let's get summer camps in. Let's fill that summer ice, the ice that doesn't get used. And then on top of that, it's what else can we look at with all these other things to kind of maximize.
Getting exciting. Thank you very
Councilor
much.
Titus?
Yeah, just a couple of things, Mark. Appreciate having you and Rory, on board. I want to see some great things, but my concerns have been, of course, since we've had the ice arena and Councilor Fornier we're at pretty close, over $1 million in accrued losses since we opened the arena. And in the beginning, when it was first sold to us, that was supposed to be a break even. Year over year, we've talked about $1.2 million a year in revenue, and we've never come close enough to it to think that we can achieve that. But what I'm asking for, is it feasible? I mean, you talked about, Rory, about ice time. Is there more, what's the feasibility? And then what we got to do to get there? Because, year over year, 100, 200, 300,000 a year. Last year it was 400,000 that we lost. And I understand the economic impact, but are we subsidizing that impact to the tune of $200,000 to $400,000 a year? To me, doesn't make sense. But I'd like to see the feasibility of what we can do to get this to pay for itself so that it's at least breaking even. I haven't seen it since it opened. And then I know that we're talking about a new high school bonding and all this kind of stuff, but it was talked about, maybe refinancing to help make the arena if it can save us $200,000 a year, we got to look at that, because that's money in the bank. So, there's got to be some ways, because we can't continue seeing that grow, and in 7 years from now, we're at $2 million in accrued losses.
Right.
Even though it is got a benefit, I understand that, but I have to look at that financial feasibility and wonder, where are we going?
No, it's very fair. If you're not asking that question, it's not something that we're not expecting you to ask, and I think the answer to that right now is tough. That's why we are digging into the GIS a little bit to understand where we need to go, try to help offset, the deficit that the arena is sitting in. It is not going to happen overnight. Unfortunately, Rory's been in the business a long time. I think, Leroy's also been in the business for a little bit too. Unfortunately, an arena is a very expensive operation to run. I mean, we are running electricity 365 days a year. We use a lot of water. The utilities are there. So we're doing our best to try to make sure to minimize those expenses, but we are trying to do our best to try to understand where we can make up some of the shortcomings. And that is working with city staff to help us, from a budget standpoint, if there's ways we can look at that. I think there's a lot of things out there. I mean, we don't own the building. I mean, we do pay the building to, we do pay George Schott every year for it. I mean, that is our biggest.
It's not your fault. It was
right. Oh, for sure.
The original performer said that the hockey community will do this. And for this, we're going to be able to afford that, and it'd be a break even when it was first introduced, including what we're paying for rent as opposed to bonding it. So something fell down, and I just would maybe like to have a performer and find out what that might have been.
Right.
Why we're not getting the revenues in the hockey side that we thought we'd get. Because we didn't talk about all these other events to help break even. Those weren't even in the mix when we first talked about the arena. So.
And maybe if I could defer out to the city manager. Councilor Titus is obviously, I think he's speaking for the majority of the council. It's been a topic. During our budgetary process, coming right up here, can we have that, at least some, I don't want to say a plan, that would be greatly appreciated, but at least what is the max capacity? What is the max potential of this arena? How could it, in theory, get to break even or, in the black, so to speak? And approximately how long? Nothing I think that would be binding you to, but something that kind of proves to us that we know you're all thinking about it, and we do, but we also need, it's always good when you have it documented.
I mean, I think it's fair to say, though, if you look at most ice rinks across the country, and I think Rory will back me up on this, is most ice rinks across the country don't make money. I mean, I came from Columbus, I just worked with the Columbus Blue Jackets at Columbus, Ohio, and Nationwide Arena. Nationwide Arena doesn't make any money, and that's a 16,000 seat facility. Every year, I mean, even the team itself that I was working for didn't make money. But the impact around, the people in Columbus will tell you the reason why Columbus is the way it is because of Nationwide Arena and the McConnell family who put it there. And I think there's a lot of people, and I understand where everyone's coming from with the budget, and we're doing our best to get it there. But I will tell you, there's a lot of people will say there's a lot of things that are going on in this community simply because of that facility that's sitting on top of that hill. And there's a lot of communities and businesses that are in this area, and the growth that you've seen in downtown, in Auburn, in that part, simply because of that facility. So, I mean, rightfully so, we got to do our best to try to come up with a way to try to make even with the facility.
And let me just clarify a little, I'll turn it back over to you. Those economic multipliers, economic impact, I hear it all the time. All over the state, I'm hearing people from around New England say, hey, I was in Auburn for a hockey match or tournament, or I was at Lost Valley, or this or that. It's reassuring, okay? But I also think that should be part of the discussion because there are multiplying effects. But we need to look at everything, obviously, and you could feel it. It's tangible, it's palatable, everybody says so, but sometimes putting some round numbers to it, I think would be helpful.
Mark, Rory, thank you very much for being here, for your presentation. Phil and I appreciate it. Phil Kroll is the person who's working with Mark in the city manager's office, and I feel very confident, I think we both do, in the direction that we're heading in, very encouraged with the leadership that you're providing and the team that we have, not just at the arena, but with this new department that we have created. We have talked about creating a business plan for the arena, and that's something that is on the priority list for Mark and for Rory. And we've talked about using an entrepreneurial approach. I think you heard that tonight in terms of what we're doing. Mark's got the right attitude, so doesn't Rory, to be able to move us forward in a positive direction. I think we're already seeing it with what you heard tonight. I know I'm encouraged, and Phil feels the same way about what's happening. I think that in terms of what you're asking. There probably isn't a day goes by that Mark and Rory or Phil or myself don't think about some of these questions that you're asking. So we've set a bar that's high for ourselves and for the team that we're working with, the staff that we have with the Recreation and Sports Facilities Department, and we'll be coming back to you on a regular basis. We had a meeting the other day with George Shaw to talk with George. We're going to have regular conversations with the corporate sponsors. Mark's been doing a good job on that, and I think you're going to be pleased with the ongoing progress that we're making, and we're also going to work on doing an economic analysis on what the impact is and the economic spin-off from the events that are taking place.
Good, thank you. So I want to just try to wrap this up because we could go in 1,000 different directions, deep into the weeds. That's not what this point is. Clarification: the subfloor flooring.
Yes.
Is this something to be expected in the CIP? Is this an appropriation that will happen outside of that process? Are we up against a time frame on this because it's a private sale?
We're up against a time frame on this. This is a unique opportunity. When I became aware of it, Phil and I became aware of it, we talked about it with Mark. We were fortunate that Rory happened to be going to Minnesota, so our thought on this was let's have someone look at it and make sure that it truly is what we think it is, and Rory's done that. You heard him talk about it. We need to have this kind of floor. Actually, it's a better deal than what we were talking about during the CIP process. As you remember, on spending up, I think it was $125,000 on a new floor. So it's interesting how things work out sometimes. So I would say, yes, we need to do something on this, or we're going to lose some of these events that we've been talking about.
Mr. Manager, from a procedural standpoint, then obviously I'm not going to do a straw poll. We can't reallocate money outside of the season. Is this going to come up on the agenda for the February 25th meeting so we can have a proper debate and vote?
It will.
Okay, perfect. So February 25th, you might or might not get a floor. There we go. Any other questions? None? I see it every day. Folks, thank you and your teams. There is a night and day difference in how everything has been put together, the professionalism, the activities, and the enthusiasm of the community. So thank you very much for all you're doing. Keep going. That would be the last compliment you get from us. Thank you.
No, and also thank you for your support. Thank you for coming over to the arena, spending some time with us, and allowing us to show you what we're doing. And thank you for coming over to Ingersoll as well and seeing just everything in general. Your feedback is important, just like everyone else's feedback that we get. Well, that Rory gets now every day at the arena. But this doesn't move forward without the support from you, also the support of the community, our corporate partnerships, and our user groups. So we're very appreciative. So thank you.
No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll open it up to the first open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on this agenda. I would ask that you state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I'm Barbara Keene, North River Road. In the workshop tonight, you folks discussed briefly the potential agricultural commission or committee, whatever it will be called. And in knowing that was coming up, I looked back at the recommendations from the previous agricultural committee, and I did have the opportunity to attend a number of those meetings. And that committee worked very hard to come up with a unanimous recommendation. They came up with some very specific suggestions as far as the makeup of a committee, and they also recommended that policy changes not be implemented until that committee was formed. And so I would just encourage you all to review that. I'm sure you've all read it at least several times, but just to go back to that, I hear a lot of people saying, well, gosh, why am I going to go on this committee or that committee, or why do I bother if committee XYZ did all this work, or we paid for a study and then we didn't pay attention to it. And so I think they put a lot of work into that, a lot of thought into that, but also just in our own self-interest, if we want citizens to continue to participate, we need to listen to those who have put in the work prior.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Keene. I was actually in your neighborhood for Winter Festival, so over the farm, yeah.
Joe Gray, Soapers Mill Road. Just to continue what Barbara was saying, the original Ag Committee came up with this recommendation: creation of a permanent committee in the City of Auburn to advise City Council on policy development and implementation of agricultural, forestry, and resource protection initiatives similar to the Agricultural Commission formed in other communities in Maine and nationwide. So a lot of you guys are worried about power grabs. It's not a power grab group. It's there to advise the City Council about issues in the ag zone. It also is there to advance agricultural initiatives, and things that we talked about were commercial kitchens, farm business planning, networking, farmers markets, packaging and distribution systems, lots of stuff having to do with agriculture and how to promote agriculture locally and regionally. So it's not like a bunch of people are just trying to keep everybody else off the land and do what's best for us. We're trying to do what's best for the City of Auburn to build an agricultural community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graff. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak during open session?
Good evening. I'm Mamie Anthony. I'm the director of the Auburn Public Library, and I wanted to extend an invitation to you and to everybody who is out there watching tonight that we will be having not only our participating in the birthday party on February 22nd, but we will also be having our annual indoor farmers market, which will run from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. in the afternoon.
The 22nd.
We have homemade goods, we have baby animals, which are a big attraction. So I just wanted to put that out there so that people can start planning. Thank you so much.
Sorry, just for clarification, the
Sure.
farmer's market is in the evening on February 22nd?
4:30 to 6:30,
And are the baby animals for sale and consumption or just to look at?
just to look at.
Very good, thank you.
And to hold and to pet.
But not to eat.
Not to eat, no.
Next year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public that would like to speak during open session? Our program or the senior center?
Again, Joe Gray, Soapers Mill Road. The STAR program is not limited to the 3 areas that we thought it was limited to. Any business in the City of Auburn can participate in the program.
Zach, Michael, just for the changes, that will be the new rule in the change, correct?
That's what change would be to open it up.
Yeah. Great. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? None being? Okay. We're going to move along then. Also under new business, we have an order on the poverty abatement discussed during executive session held during the workshop. This will be order 17-02042019. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilor Fournier and a second by Councilor Lasagna. I'm going to open it up to the public for comment. Is there any comment from the public on this order? Oh, let me clarify. I'm sorry. This is actually 2 separate. So first we'll be addressing order number 17-02042019. So will there be any comment on that order? None being? I'm sorry.
Should
I'll
we
bring it
read
back
it?
to the...
Has it been read?
I can read the order. Order that the City Council hereby grant an abatement for 2016 in the amount of $3,632.64 for case number 2019-001 in accordance to Title 36 MRSA 841, Section 2. And I'm going to go back and get a motion on that order. Do I have a motion on that, or sorry for the little backwards on that, folks?
Motion on order number 17-0204-2019.
I have a motion for Councilor Fornia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Councilor Gary. Now, I'm going to open this back up. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this order?
I don't know.
No? I'm going to bring it back to the council. Council, is there any debate or discussion on this order? None being? Okay. Show of hands, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor of the city granting abatement for 2016 in the amount of $3,632.64 for case number 2019-001 in accordance to Title 36 MRSA 841, please raise your hand. All those opposed to the abatement? The order fails by a vote of 4-3. Next on the agenda is order number 18-02042019. Order that the City Council hereby grants an abatement for 2017 in the amount of $3,507.21 for case number 2019-001 in accordance to Title 36 MRSA 841, Section 2. Do I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Gary and a second by Councilor Fournier. I'll open it up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment? None being, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Is there any debate or discussion on this order? None being, I'll ask for a vote by show of hands. All those in favor of the order number 18-02042019, please raise your hand. Opposed? The motion fails by a vote of 4-3. That over there, okay, thanks. Here. Okay, now we're going to move on to reports. Starting off with the mayor's report. So, a couple things just to bring up to everyone's attention. I'm sorry,
Did we miss that? Was I in the bathroom when you went through that?
Wait, what? We already went through it.
Oh, the proposed amendment? The proposed amendment for consolidated plan, action plan, you already voted?
Oh, there's no vote. Councilor Titus, there's no vote. That was just public discussion. Just comment period by regulation. So there was no vote.
And there was no comment then?
There's no comment either, no. I'm sorry, Mr. Gray had a comment. Just to clarify, the STAR program opens up, instead of 3 areas, opens up city-wise.
We didn't talk about what the proposal was, what the money was going to be used for. We didn't even talk about that.
It's just public comment. Just public comment. Moving along, mayor's report. So February is moving right along. Couple points. We will not be having a meeting as normal on the third Monday of February because we'll have President's Day. So our next meeting will be on February 25th. There will be a meeting at 5:30, as we've said earlier, of the mayor's ad hoc agricultural resource protection group at 5:30 on February 11th here in council chambers. We are moving very quickly into our actual birth date on February 22nd. There's an invite that's being circulated. I would invite everybody to come to City Hall at 10 a.m. for a presentation, birthday cake, and a kickoff for day's festivities. So this is going to be our last meeting before then. So I definitely want to make sure the public knows about it. I want to make sure the council knows about it. We're lining up speakers and some other entertainment, if you would. So it would be much obliged to have you here. I'd like to pass along something that I saw this weekend. I was at Lost Valley all weekend for middle school ski meets, as well as a JP Parisian Invitational meet, which gathered around 230, 240 participants. I thought most of these folks were going to be from Auburn, Lewiston, and I was wrong, gladly wrong. The vast majority were from all over New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, and as far away as Fort Kent, Maine. I actually got a really nice message I forwarded to all of you today from the parents of the child who participated from Fort Kent. They spent a few nights here, and they loved it. They loved the city, and they were very grateful that there was participation and the energy level. It hit me then that we talk about getting tourism and becoming a tourism destination. We're already there. It's just to what degree are we there? It should, I hope, make all of us at home, in Auburn, on the council, realize that we're already doing sports and cultural tourism. We just need to quantify it. We need to understand it, We need to figure out how to multiply it and really truly what the effect is on our community. So that was just one example. There are many, I'm sure, but that was really nice to hear. Other than that, that's my reports. So we're moving into our sesquicentennial. Look forward to it. And we've got a lot of work to do before budget season. Thank you. Start over here with Councilor Gary.
Are we here next week, Mayor, Monday night?
Monday night, the 11th, is the Mayor's Ad Hoc on Ag, but not at City Council.
At 5:30, correct?
At 5:30, and I'm sorry, on that, schedules get mixed. We also have a joint school committee workshop here in Chambers on Wednesday at 5.
No. 6.
I'm sorry, 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Things are moving. Okay, 6 p.m., joint workshop, school committee. Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Gary.
No reports, but what's the date of the school joint meeting?
6.
Wednesday, February.
This Wednesday, okay.
This Wednesday.
Thank you.
Councilor Lasagna?
Among the other meetings, tomorrow morning at 8, the Strategic Planning Committee, City Strategic Planning Committee Steering Committee will be meeting at 8, and we'll really begin to dig into what we've heard from the subcommittees to start to create a plan to present to the Investment Committee. Is it? No, that's tomorrow at 8?
No. Then probably the original date was. It's been changed to the 12th of February.
Good, I'm glad I know that.
Phil's going to talk about it later.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
We mentioned the Joint School Committee, and tomorrow night at 5:30, it's a School Building Committee that will be meeting to talk about the presentation, the joint presentation on Wednesday. Is that at 5:30? Anybody know? Okay.
6 o'clock. I'll look at my calendar
I
to
had
verify.
2 different dates on 6 o'clock.
I'll look.
Okay, sorry for the confusion.
I think the takeaway here is we should just bunk out in City Hall,
Too many meetings.
Yeah, just stay here and, yeah, well, I'm sure.
Keep them all at the same
Thank you.
time.
Councilor Hayes?
No reports tonight.
Councilor Titus?
Yeah, just a couple of items. Tomorrow afternoon at 3:30, the marijuana work group will meet for their last meeting, as I understand it. We'll get everything all finalized that we would go to planning board with our ordinance suggestions, and then they will be, again, refined, and the council should have it to look at pretty soon after that. So we hope to have that going forward pretty quickly. 3:30, and it's going to be in the community room. Also tomorrow at 6 o'clock, the Sunderland Drive Neighborhood Watch Group will be meeting at Sam's on Court Street, on the corner of Court Street there. That's always good to go to. And then in a couple of weeks, on February 19th, the Sewer District Trustees will meet at 4 o'clock, and that'll be at the trustees at the district office. And then the Water Trustees will meet on February 20th as well, and that'll be on Wednesday, the following day, at the same time, 4 o'clock at the district office. And then also my last item I wanted to bring up, and I appreciate, Mr. Manager, your opening to the budget last meeting. I really think that's great to get that going. And I would wish that this council would have a workshop sooner, if not later, about our consensus on how we feel about the upcoming budget. One of my concerns about, and I may be bringing this up Wednesday, we decided to let the building committee at the school just shoot the moon and do whatever they wanted to do without any kind of budgets in mind. We never talked to them about what we had for a limit or a ceiling, and now we're looking at minimum of $22 million as it looks. I don't like to see our budget go that way. I like to have us have some direction, give direction to staff on where we'd like the budget to go. Otherwise, we're going to have to be having to work through the weeds, as it were, and without any direction. So I would appreciate a workshop of some sort to give everybody's idea and consensus on where we should be for increases, where we should be for less spending, more spending, whatever. I think we may have some ideas about that, long before the budget's finalized. Just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along to Councilor Fournier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although this is a topic that belongs to Councilor Walker, he's given me permission to review this. I don't have any meetings to report on, however. I already thanked Jody Driscoll for her hard work in preparing things for us today, as she always does. She's just wonderful. We had the meeting at Raleigh's. for the New Auburn citizens. I thank Manager Crichton for being there because he did clearly review the city's direction, what was going on, all of the projects that are going on. There's a lot of information for these folks, and they're pretty regular attendees. Also, he fielded the citizens' questions and concerns, and I do appreciate that because they like to know what's going on, and they appreciate whatever information they can get about what's going on in the city because they care about the city. And also at that on that day, the Senator Ned Claxton presented an award from the state of Maine. I can't remember exactly how it was written, but for his continued services as a really responsible citizen and for all of the work that he does for the citizens in Auburn. So I took a couple pictures and posted it someplace, but if it needs to be posted anywhere else, let me know. But he was pretty happy with that award.
How did you get an award after just being elected like 2 weeks ago? That's pretty good. I didn't get an award.
No, Kenny.
Kenny did.
Oh, okay, I thought Senator Claxton got one.
No. Senator Claxton came especially after his long day. It was 25-year award. So it was an official state award, and Kenny was very, very proud. And I've got the picture, so if we want to display it somewhere, I'll get it to. Yeah, no, it was for Kenny.
Yeah, I thought it was for Senator Claxton.
And Ned had a long day, and he made it there, this last thing for the day. I'm telling you, Senator Claxton is doing an awesome job. I'd like to also thank Liz Allen for the fabulous job she's doing with publicity. That's like absolutely unbelievable. Every time I see, all of the ads on, all of the announcements, they get better and better, and she really has a handle on that. So I think it's really significantly helping us in terms of promoting us. She's a good PR person. She's wonderful. And I also want to thank the owner of Lost Valley, because over and over again, he and his wife always approve anything we ask them to do. People are there all the time for various reasons, and then your mention of the Parisian, race, that's a perfect example. It takes manpower to groom those trails and to get everything going, make sure there's enough snow for the next day. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of work that it takes. We don't even know how much it takes. So I really have to commend him for his exceptional allegiance to us as citizens, and especially to the families and children in this community and other communities. So I'm really happy to be so close to Lost Valley. And finally, I just want to thank the mayor for his aggressive search of funding sources. You have been doing a fabulous job getting funding for all of these events that we're doing. It's good to know that people. You have your peeps, and then you're able to, to chat with them and ask them to contribute. And we've had a positive result as a result of that. So thank you very much. It's a lot of work, and it's hard work, and I truly appreciate that. And I'm sure the rest of the council does. Thank you.
Councilor Walker?
Thank you very much.
Since you advocated everything to Councilor Fournier, we should move on, correct?
We can, but it'll come back. Tomorrow night, very important meeting at Pettingill Park at the Senior Center. I would like the age-friendly committee people that have been involved from the beginning to show up, because we are finalizing I hope anyways, we're going to finalize the bylaws tomorrow night so that we can present that to the council and move forward with the bylaws. So 5:30 tomorrow night, Senior Center, Pettingill Park. It's very important that we all get there if we possibly can. I want to just touch on the Rollies Diner meeting, which was United New Auburn Association. Luckily, we were able to convince the city manager to come down and listen to some of the people that show up almost every month at Rollies for this meeting, because they do play a part of our great city, and sometimes they have some real concerns. I just want to mention a couple of them, because with the high school being built, everybody's up in the air. They don't know how much money this is going to cost. They don't know if they're going to be able to afford to live here come 2022 or 2025, whenever this school is built, or we give the okay to spend whatever amount of money that we're going to approve. That is a big thing weighing on a lot of people's minds, and most of the people that do show up at this meeting are 60 years of age and older. There are a few young, but not very many, because it's the way New Auburn is kind of spaced out, where a lot of people that have lived in that community still live there, but with the worries of where are we going with our budget in this city. And they are definitely worried about it. The other thing, they mentioned that this agricultural, forestry / whatever we want to call it that we're working on, how long are they going to support the people that own agricultural land at the tax rate that they're made to pay when they are paying for everyone that lives in the agricultural? And that's how they feel about it. They feel that they are covering the big costs of this city that live within the city limits of the big city that we live in. So we need to look at and weigh out, what are we really going to do moving forward with the agricultural land? Are we going to continue to allow it to be at the rate it's at, while the people that live within the city are carrying the weight of the tax? Thank you.
Councilor Young.
Yes. I'm looking forward to watching EL at the KVAC indoor track meet coming up this weekend. And they've been doing quite well, the girls particularly, but they'll have all the teams, I don't know, something like 15 or so. It's a big conference.
I'd like to report. Thank you. I'd like to add one thing. Councilor Hayes?
Yeah, I didn't report, but I guess hearing some of the other reports, I guess a couple of comments, I guess. One, I think we do. We have some big ticket items that are ahead of us. And I guess there's maybe some question as to where does the money come from? And I guess one item, a question maybe for Councilor Titus with respect to discussion with respect to the treatment facility that's been, was in the newspaper over the weekend, in fact. Who bonds for that? And I think, I think in the community, there is a question. And if we can answer it tonight, and maybe
I mean, right now there's no plans to bond anything. It's a exploratory committee that's going to look into the feasibility, going to look into the funding and grants available to make it happen. And if at the end of the day it's going to cost the taxpayers and the ratepayers more than they can afford, or even close to it, it probably won't happen if that's the thing that's going to stop it.
I guess the specific question is the bonding itself. If there's needing for bonding, I believe it's through the district.
Probably has to be through the district, but we're not sure. Again, we got to research the funding sources and how that's done.
Okay, so I think we need an answer to that.
That's right. That's the idea of the exploratory committee.
I think the other question or an issue that we need to discuss is where are we going with sports tourism? I think as we look at the items that may be going with the new high school being discussed, whether we go 6 lanes to 8 lanes on the track, whether we're going to put in a second AstroTurf athletic field, or even on the primary field, whether it be AstroTurf. If we're really looking for sports tourism, do we see that all being carried by the, essentially as part of the school, or do we recognize that that's an investment in the city's idea of sports tourism? So I think that, as we put that amount out to the public, maybe the city should be part of our CIP. We should discuss it as being part.
And Councilor Hayes, I do respect your comments on both topics, and I do respect Councilor Walker's comments as well. I do want to make sure that we are not an open debate. We're in a councilor and mayor reports, just reporting, and it probably shouldn't have gone down to the level or to the detail that it has, though they're all great topics and they need to be discussed. I'm just wanting to know.
Well, we should have had that discussion long ago about the school.
And I think there's one more, and I think that's, we keep talking about capital campaigns, and we heard another tonight with respect to the CLT.
With all due respect,
Well,
I'm going to enter into work. No, I'm going to enter into workshop as soon as we are done a regular council meeting. That's the appropriate venue for this discussion versus reports. So thank you. And we will go into a 15-minute workshop directly after this council meeting. On reports, there is one report that I'd like to add to mine, hot off the presses. Maine Biz magazine just released their 2018 list of hottest real estate markets in the state of Maine. I would like to report that out of the top 10, Auburn is number 2, which is, let me give you some stats. 2018, 315 homes were sold in Auburn. 2017, 274 were sold. That's a 15% increase. 2018 median price was $158,666. In 2017, it was $140,450. That's a 13% increase in median home value or price in one year. This is by far, just glancing, eyeballing this, outside of Sanford and Saco, the hottest real estate market in the state, just on a sheer number of units sold, but definitely number 2 overall. So I think that's really something good that we all need to be, staff should be very proud of, everybody in Auburn should be proud of, and so forth. That's and I hope we get some more details on that. But again, I just pulled this up literally right now. So that's all I have, but thank you. I'm going to turn over to the city manager for his report.
You're a hard act to follow, Mayor. That's great news.
Good news.
So just to follow up on what Mamie was saying earlier about February 22nd, which will be the birthday celebration for City of Auburn throughout the city. There are more than 25 cake sites. We'll have an event here in the council chambers at 10 a.m. on February 22nd. We're working on the speakers for that event and what we'll be doing that day. It's an exciting day. I want to thank Mamie and all the folks, Sabrina and everyone else who's involved in organizing that. And for more information, the public can go to auburn150.com, auburn150.com. I also want to mention this. It's time for the Spirit of America nominations once again. We've already, through Liz Allen, sent some information out to people, and we posted information on our website. You can go to auburnmaine.gov, auburnmaine.gov for that information. The joint workshop of the City Council and School Committee has been mentioned, and Councilor Lozandi, you were correct about the School Building Committee meeting being tomorrow night at 5:30. Looked at my calendar, so very good memory on that. And just a comment on the FY20 budget. We have started that process, as Councilor Titus mentioned. The Finance Director and I gave a presentation and at the last council meeting, and we'll be starting our process of meeting with the department heads, department directors, and key staff this month, and we've already scheduled a number of those reviews. And there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we will be talking with you on a regular basis about what's going on. And lastly, but not least, I want to ask Phil if he would give an update on the strategic plan process.
Thank you. As many of you know, we wrapped up the subcommittee meetings for growth and quality. The last session with them, which was 4 sessions total, was just last week, last Thursday. That group did a great job. We had a great turnout of community members that participated in that. We've had great conversation. We are now taking all that information, putting it into a report. The staff is actually meeting tomorrow. The leaders that were helping to facilitate some of those smaller breakout groups are meeting tomorrow to work on developing all the materials that will be needed for the Strategic Planning Committee, which is scheduled for February 12th at 8 a.m. That group will decide what their next steps are for meeting, whether or not they'll continue meeting in the morning or move into an evening meeting for the rest of this month until the investment committee begins their work. While this is all happening, there's other work that's being done as we're gathering information regarding demographics, population, sales tax information, economic growth. So we're pulling all this information. We'll certainly be pulling the information from Maine Biz that the mayor just shared. Those are great numbers to be able to share within the strategic planning as we talk about the future of the city. So those are our next steps and the work that's being done.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to open up to the second open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on this agenda. I would ask you to state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Barbara Keene, North River Road. I've heard tonight, and I know, Mr. Mayor, last week with your State of the City address, you talked about promoting Auburn and promoting tourism. And I just wanted to bring up, there's a program I was disappointed to find out that we're not currently participating in, but it seems perfect for us. It's called Main Street Maine. It is administered through the Maine Development Foundation's Maine Downtown Center, and it's tied in with the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And we obviously are an historic city, we have an historic downtown, and it seems like that would be, you know, a perfect fit. I see that Lewiston is trying to be, they're kind of an interim member. There are currently 10 cities in Maine that are full-fledged recognized members of this, and it just seems like another way to bring more people to the city.
Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Okay. Perfect. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? None being, I'm going to close this open session. We don't have any more executive sessions tonight. We are, before I entertain a motion to adjourn, we'll have approximately a 15-minute workshop up until 9 o'clock to go over a variety of issues brought up by the council. So at this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Fournier, second by Councilor Walker. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We stand adjourned. Okay, let's keep our seats. So, I'm going to leave it off with Councilor Hayes. Councilor Hayes, you had a third thing to bring up, I believe it was?
Well, the last was mention of another capital campaign for CLT, and we've had a lot of interest in bringing money in from our residents. And of course, we're looking, CLT's capital campaign, you know, we're looking at the school capital campaign. So I guess we just need to recognize that we don't want to be out knocking on the door for all these different items, but there's got to be some coordination and some recognition of how we go about through these capital campaigns.
One thing that I wanted to bring up, Mr. Mayor, as it relates to that, because Councilor Hayes had talked about, you know, how the city is going to benefit from the new high school. And I'm always a skeptic when it comes to economic development and how it's brought in and how it's measured, because so far I haven't seen a true measurement of what it means. But we should have that discussion, because if, for instance, a 1,200-seat auditorium, now that's a big ticket item. It's on debate right now, and everybody on the building committee appears to believe that that's the way to go. But is it the way to go? But this council should have a workshop talking about these items and whether or not we feel it's a city benefit, not just a school district benefit, and then we can maybe help sell the idea. But if we're just presented with, here it is, guys, you got to vote, and we have a 15-minute workshop on it and vote on it before it goes to referendum, we're not going to have a chance to get behind anything. And I've asked from the very beginning that we get more involved from the beginning, and I was told that, well, you got to wait for the building committee to do its work, and you got to wait for them to come up with the recommendations. It's too early in the process for us to be, quote unquote, shooting things down or, you know, asking for things or not asking for things. And now we're in the 11th hour, and I'm a little bit disturbed because I don't think we've had that chance to say, well, yeah, we like this because it's not just a school benefit, it's a city benefit. We're not going to have time to really discuss that.
How about if we had time?
I don't.
And let me just.
I'm just saying.
There's a process, right? And let me just, because I've been pretty much involved. I just want to, you know, just clarify what you're saying. And I actually respect what you say, and I think a lot of us have been saying the same thing. There's the hard to quantify time. How much time is needed? What do we have to do? Who's leading the process? And I will say that I am waiting without passing judgment until Wednesday to find out where the leadership is in that flow of conversation, to see who's, you know, what information is coming about. And then I think at that point, Wednesday, I think we really need to get everything out there. But frankly, I don't think we'll have enough time.
No, I don't think so.
And it's one of those interesting scenarios where the debate is dictated by state mandate. And if the school department has they could just follow what the state says and be in compliance, or they can go above and beyond. I think the argument could be made that maybe they did not go above and beyond. Maybe we haven't been interacting with them as a council more, though I will say we have council representatives on the building committee. We have the city manager in constant contact with the superintendent about this. Myself, I've had meetings as well to try to get the process flowing further. So I don't want to give up. In other words, I think to summarize my thoughts, I don't want us to give up hope and get frustrated to say this process is wrong or it's not working. It's just different, and it's frankly like probably we'll never have to deal with this process ever again because it is a once-in-a-generational type process.
Well, there'll be another school replacement. There'll be other opportunities. And
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilor Tyson. I've been going to all these meetings, and yet I feel that on Wednesday we're supposed to say yay or nay.
No, we don't. No,
But
that's not,
also,
that's not what we're supposed to do.
Thank you. But is it also a time for us to say one turf field, one one gym? Where does that, where do we get to have?
That's not the city council's purview.
Well, but we should have an opinion because we obviously have to vote on it.
You could absolutely have an opinion.
We have to vote on it, so it is our purview.
We were asked to give our opinion on an email that was sent just yesterday.
Well, we were asked to give questions and send written
today,
questions.
so they can work on it tomorrow. But questions, concerns, but we do need to see all of these. We don't have anything in front of us to go by, is what I'm trying to say. I do know that we've been to, the forums and things, but, I mean, I have a question like, for example, what about the furniture? I don't see the furniture anywhere. We're going to have to, they're not going to bring the old furniture to the new school. Where is that going to show up, and how much is that going to cost? Is that going to go on, the budget, the regular budget? So there are a lot of questions.
I have a lot of questions. And those questions need to be sent to Chair Kendall immediately. So he can, per his email, we have to send as many questions as possible.
Right.
So we're not just waiting for answers during the meeting, but we're maximizing our
But the questions have been asked that I've heard, and I've been to the public forums, and I'm a little concerned because when you look at the mix in the public forums, it's not really a huge slice of Auburn taxpayers. But when they ask a question, do we need a 1,200-seat auditorium, or will one smaller do the trick? And they say, well, no, we need it for this reason. What's the next question? So it isn't a debate. We ask a question, do you need this? Well, we need it for this. Next question.
Mr. Mayor, this is just a process. This is just a process. We're working up to a place where either in June or September, the public will get to vote on this. And it'll either fail or it'll pass. If it fails, then it's not the last say. They'll just take another proposal, and we'll keep on voting on it until the community agrees on something.
But we have to vote on it as a council. So if we're going to vote on it without having a good debate on what we think is good for the city of Auburn and what is necessary, then we're just voting for something that's
I want you to define that.
in the building.
But you're assuming. And I do believe that conversation starts on Wednesday. Define the definition of a good debate so we can make sure we're all in agreement with it. But we cannot. We owe it to the people of Auburn not to assume that this is a failed process already. If we do that, we might as well just hang it up. We can't. And we fix on failure aspects. We should. Oh. But let's define what that good debate is. If that means we're meeting every other night for the next 6 months, then let's do that. Okay? If that's what we're in agreement with the school committee, after Wednesday's preliminary, then that's it. I agree. But let's not go in here with a preconceived notion that it's a failing option.
I don't think that that's what we're saying. I just think we want to make sure that, because we're, as you probably are, hearing from people in the community with real important questions, and we want to make sure they may not be coming to those meetings. We want to make sure that we're able to represent them adequately and are heard. So we'll see on Wednesday night how that process works.
This is the council's policy-making purview to define what that appropriate dialogue is. Okay, I encourage it. I mean, I can do it, but nobody will like it, and I don't want to have that responsibility deferred onto me by you. This is your choice. Okay, you represent the people of Auburn just like I do, and we have to look at the school committee. And the school committee, they represent their students. That was made very clear to me at the Maine Municipal Association last week meeting that they do not represent the people who elect them. They do not. Their constituency is their students.
Exactly.
So
I would hope it'd be the parents and the students.
now they're students.
Students.
Students. There's actually some legislation trying to change that right now, winding its way through Augusta.
But who votes for them?
It's interesting. The residents vote for them, but they represent the students. We represent the residents. So now we have a checks and balance. So it's just about how do we choose to use that. So I think that's the interesting dialogue, and we should keep having these conversations about that. So keep going. I just wanted to try to clarify for myself.
But just to follow up, I think, yes, there was a number of people that came to the actual forums, but the last forum was viewed by the public as well, and I think probably Elfrida knows better than I the return of comments from those that did view from the outside.
Those that did view from the outside were not 100%, certainly. And it was not a large number, a large
I think
proportion.
it was close. I heard the number of 600.
Okay, I didn't hear that. I don't know where you heard 600, but I'm not sure. I can't.
But it was viewed.
It was viewed. It was viewed by a number of people, right? We could ask, I mean, that would be one of our questions. We could ask that again, I mean, of Tom Kendall, just to make sure. You know, but I know, I mean, I agree with comments that were made about the amount of people who are who are sitting around the table, who they are, where they come from, what demographics do they represent. You know, I really didn't see a lot of, you know, people my age around the table, or older people. I saw a lot of younger people, young professional people. You know, so decisions that are made, it depends on who sits around the table, what those decisions are.
Okay, so I guess it leads to the other question that I brought up almost, well, after the question with respect to the treatment facility and the bonding question. The second is, you know, we keep talking about sports tourism. I mean, we have an opportunity, if we want to advance that, by providing more fields, better fields, more year-round facilities, then I think the city has an obligation on the municipal side if we want to advance that. You know, I agree, as we've talked about, we probably don't need for the high school itself to go from 6 lanes to 8 lanes. We probably don't need maybe the second athletic field being synthetic. But if we want this community to be part to promote sports tourism, then maybe we do. But then we've got to recognize it from the municipal side that that's our investment. Well, whole city investment, but we got to recognize that from the municipal side, either we make that commitment or we don't. And, you know, and I think, again, if we're talking sports tourism, as the report earlier said, this city's not going to go alone in doing that. But, you know, earlier tonight, well, actually, when we toured the arena, you know, it was said, geez, if we had a third sheet of ice, we could do more. I think really they are. There is a third sheet of ice. That's in Lewiston. You know, if we put the 3 sheets of ice together, we could do more.
Well, I mean,
and I know that
Privately owned.
Privately
owned.
But I think that
that's fine. But it's a sheet of ice.
Right. But I mean, with the discussions though, we need to be having is okay. If the school's going to be a city property that's going to derive economic development for the city, then it's a city property, not a school property, which means different rules. And I know in the past, school buildings and school facilities have been closely and should be closely monitored and guarded by the school and not available for complete use by the municipality and the city. Now, they certainly are talking about the auditorium in certain areas being public all the time, and I really like to see that. There's going to be a section of the building, I guess the school will be open 18 hours a day if it needs to for the public. I want to see that in writing to be sure. But is that true of the facilities? If the turf facilities are available to the public, will they be? Mm-hmm. I haven't heard that, and maybe that's true. And so maybe you're right. We can have events that our recreation department can schedule around those facilities if we're told that can happen.
And I have to say, in the Strategic Planning Committee, one of the things that surfaced was having an agreement with the high school for public use, an actual agreement for public use. One of the things that I would like to see happen sooner rather than later is to have a discussion about that. And also this idea, I'm surprised that the Community Little Theater hasn't been in conversation already about the high school and been part of the conversation that happens with that space, because it could help or it could hurt Community Little Theater.
Good observation on that one, too. I was led to believe that there was more in-depth conversations, and CLT said no. I don't think that was actually, maybe I misheard that.
That's what I was referring to in terms of the demographics and who was represented around the table for decision-making.
I do think, and frankly, I think our job as elected officials is to represent those who do not show up. We can't bank on having people show up. We do live in a republic.
Weren't asked.
We were elected to represent their best wishes, how we felt fit. So remember that. But I think we should also act as a check and balances in this situation, because our constituency is the entire city. And we need to ask these questions about CLT. We need to ask these questions about, who has quote unquote ownership of fields versus indoor facilities? What's the MOU? How do they work together?
And really, like I said, I wish we could, I know this sounds cut and dry, and I've said it 100 times when it comes to our budget and when it comes to this. What can we afford? And why can't we go to that discussion and say, well, we can afford 15 million or 14 million or 13 million, and then stick to a budget? Why do we have to say, no, it's 22 or nothing? And we're going to take that to the voters and hope that it passes.
I don't think that was the case, though.
Well, I mean, that's what,
Well, I think
that's where we're headed.
part of those expenditures, part of what that's down the road a couple of years, but that we're going to get walloped at that point if we accept the whole thing the way it is. We've got people who are going off grants, and if they're going to still be employed, which I'm suspecting that that's what the plan is, who's going to pick up that salary? Who's going to pick up the benefits? There are many small questions. When we're looking at this, we have a school budget every single year. We have a city budget every single year. Now we're going to have a budget for the new high school. And I, too, want a magnificent high school. And I wish my kids would have been able to go to it, my grandchildren, but it's not going to happen. But it doesn't matter. It's still, I'm a taxpayer. Well, I don't know. Well, he's going to be in high school next year. So anyway, I think that what we need to do is keep in mind that there are many things that are going to impact the taxes. And it's not that we're saying, no, we can't do that, we can't afford it. What we're saying is, what can we afford? What is it possible for us to be able to afford? Because $23 million, to me, is a lot of money, and I think that that's where we make the decisions. That's where we say yay or nay about, that's where the public says yay or nay.
Look, there's everything you're saying is absolutely right.
Twist things.
There's one element that we need to have this discussion on Wednesday about affordability. $22 million is a lot of money for anyone in the city. Absolutely. I don't care who you are. As an individual, as a municipality, things change a little. But we have to look at the mill rate and what does it have a direct influence on the taxpayer? Okay, where does it stand now? And then we got to have the hard conversation on what can the city do? How imaginative can we get at the school department to save out of their operational budget or potential long-term CIPs in order to cut that down? Like I said in my State of the City, not the entire burden can be expected on the taxpayer. But once we start looking at the mechanics of everything, and this is going to make people very, very uncomfortable, okay, because there's going to be some conversations about liquidating assets. There's going to be some conversations about, really how do we make this for CLT so they can come over, so those ticket sales can go to offset operational costs and so forth. That's the conversation we have to have Wednesday too. Start at least. Because we've got to whittle that mill rate down to a more acceptable level.
Yes, we do.
And that's going to mean some common sacrifice. It's going to mean a lot more houses being built, a lot more businesses being here, a lot more increase in valuation. It's going to mean, unfortunately, we met today and we were talking about reimbursements from Augusta. In 2010, we were getting $3.4 million in reimbursement. 4.3? 3.4. 3.4. And municipal revenue sharing. 2010. Since then, we're down to 1.6.
That's half.
You look at the delta there. You look at the delta. That's a bond for all 22 million without it, and property tax relief. So those are some of these things that we don't know what's going to happen in Augusta, but we have to control what we have locally. And hope is not a strategy, but it's going to be a component, I think. So
tomorrow night is the night, or Wednesday night, I'm sorry, to really ask these questions. And I think that I've put some forward already to Tom, and I think if you can put them in an email so that there's some sort of preparation on their part and understanding of the kind of things that we're interested in finding out
Right.
about.
And I think,
Just take a look at your email that he
yeah.
sent.
And I think we all should be reminded again that for the high school that we keep calling our new high school that now sits on the hill, we went through this process before. It went to 3 referendums to get what we got originally.
Oh, in the 60s.
In the 60s. That was without a gym, without a cafeteria.
Yeah.
So it was very marginalized to get to that 3rd referendum.
Right.
So we're talking again, it goes to the public. The public can certainly.
We had an opportunity quite a few years ago to build a new high school, and we missed the boat on that one. And so now here we are, a little bit too
How
late.
did we, a few
That
years
was,
ago?
that was all local share, though. There was no state
All
funding on
local
that.
share.
Local
I'm
share.
glad we didn't do that, or else we'd all be swimming right
Yeah,
now in
that'd
a
be more than
a whole
20
lake
million.
of bad stuff. I'm going to close up this workshop. If everybody's okay, unless anyone who hasn't spoken. Councillor Walker, you've been silent. Would you like to say something?
No, I'm happy.
Well, you just said something. Anybody else? No?
Let's adjourn.
Okay. Oh, sorry, City Manager, please, wrap it up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've been going to the school building committee meetings since I became manager. I think I've gone to all of them except for one. I would say 3 things. One, I think it's really important that the school committee and the council be in agreement on what we're going to do with the new high school. So we should strive to accomplish that, which may require more dialogue, more conversation. I agree with Council Lasagna on sending questions to Tom Kendall, or if you want, you can send them to me and I can forward them to Katie. However you want to do that for Wednesday night would be great. There is a school building committee meeting tomorrow night, and at the school building committee meeting tomorrow night, there will be a conversation about the new high school and the costs that are being discussed this evening. All of you know, and I'm not sure that all the citizens do, we didn't start off with 22 million. As Council Lasagna and Council Young know, we started off with about 40 million. So there was a wish list in the beginning, which is normal, and we have winnowed that list down. 22 million sounds like a big number, but there has been a lot of discussion, and I would say debate, to get to the 22 million. The other thing that I would say is, and Finance Director and I presented information at the last council meeting on the budget, at this legislative session, there will be discussion on increasing municipal revenue sharing. It's right at 1.6 million now. If we were funded 100%, we'd be at about 4 million. On the reimbursement for the homestead exemption, the reimbursement is 62%. If we were funded at 100% on the homestead exemption, that would add probably another 430,000 or so. Then you have the local option sales tax, which is going to be discussed. And I know there are different opinions about that, but if you added 1 cent on the sales tax, that would add 7.6 million annually to the revenues for the city of Auburn. My advice to the mayor, to all of you, to Katie, to the school committee will be, let's wait until the end of this legislative session to see what happens on municipal revenue sharing and the other items that could positively impact what we're doing as a city. If we're able to increase municipal revenue sharing or get a combination of municipal revenue sharing and maybe an increase in the reimbursement for homestead exemption and maybe do something on a local option sales tax, that can make a big difference in terms of what we're able to do. We could pay for a new high school. We could do a lot of things, and we could lower the property tax at the same time. So we don't know what we don't know at this point in terms of what's going to happen at the legislature. And I'm realistic enough to know that a lot of these things have been discussed at the legislature in the past, and there has been no action. So Again, my suggestion to Katie will be to wait until after the session adjourns, which means that there would not be a referendum vote in June, but it would be pushed to September or later than that. There'll be discussion about that, I'm sure, tomorrow night. So this is a great opportunity for the city of Auburn. We all know that. My goal is to see the city council and the school committee working together collaboratively. And if that happens, I'm sure that we'll have a positive result, and it'll be hopefully a new high school with lights that work. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to close this workshop down. Everybody have a great night.
So, Bob.
When we left.